Hey guys, tonight we're descending into the cold, damp, soul-sucking belly of a medieval dungeon. And no, you probably won't survive this. That's not an exaggeration. Between the rats, the frostbite, and whatever that smell is, you're looking at a 1-star review on Medieval Yelp Max. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Seriously, I'm not the Inquisition, I won't chase you for it. Drop a comment too. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. Always curious. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your boots slap against slick stone as you march down a narrow corridor, torchlight flickering on the moss-slicked walls. The air thickens with every step, like it's reluctantly letting you in. Your hands are bound, wrists already rubbed raw from rope chafing. You've stopped asking questions. No one answers. Not the guard who yanked you off your cart, not the cloaked figure who read your name off some roll of parchment, and definitely not the men in rusty chainmail guiding you with grunts and occasional shoves. Then you feel it. The temperature drops fast, like you've walked straight into the side of a mountain. It creeps through your clothes, starts a dull ache in your bones. Your breath fogs in the air, a faint ghost of the comfort you left behind. There's a moment of hesitation at the edge of the stairs. The guard spits, grabs a lantern and starts the descent. You follow, trying not to slip on the ancient steps, worn smooth by centuries of miserable feet. And then the door slams behind you. The sound echoes, loud, metallic, final. The dungeon's main corridor stretches ahead like the throat of some sleeping beast. Iron-barred doors line the walls at odd intervals, and behind them, shapes. Some shift, some don't. A few groan. None of it feels particularly welcoming. Your cell is near the end, a squat hole of stone no larger than a stable stall. There's no bed, just a pile of straw that crunches when you step on it. Mouldy, damp and suspiciously warm in spots. You wonder if it's from the last guy. The guard unlocks the door with a ring of keys so heavy it could double as a murder weapon. He gives you a look that says, "Don't make me come in there." Then he pushes you in with a grunt and slams the door shut. The lock clicks. The lantern light fades. You're alone, and it is so cold. The kind of cold that bypasses your skin and wraps itself around your organs. There's no fire here, no window, just a low ceiling, wet walls, and air that tastes like old blood and mildew. You take a deep breath, and immediately regret it. The smell is something between rotting vegetables, human waste, and a lingering metallic tang that reminds you way too much of injury. You sit, eventually, mostly because you can't stand anymore. Your knees ache from the cold, your fingers are stiff. The rope burns on your wrists, sting, but you don't dare lick them clean. The straw might be crawling. You're pretty sure something just twitched beneath you. A rat? A beetle? Hopefully not a hand. Your ears adjust faster than your eyes. You begin to hear things. Chains rattling somewhere far down the corridor. A low wet cough from another cell. Dripping water, slow and rhythmic, like some kind of countdown. And then there's the moan. Not dramatic, not theatrical. Just a soft, broken sound that seems to seep from the stones themselves. Here's a fun fact. Most medieval dungeons weren't even originally built for imprisonment. Castles often added these chambers later, or repurposed wine cellars or storage rooms when enemies piled up. There wasn't much concern for comfort or legality. If someone important wanted you off the streets, or off the throne, all it took was a forged accusation and a few bribed officials. Which begs the question, what did you do? You try to remember. The accusations came so fast. A whispered name in the market, a stolen coin purse you never saw, or was it political? You'd heard stories. How nobles would disappear overnight, taken by shadowy men in cloaks and dropped into oubliettes to be forgotten. No trial, no defence, just silence. You lean against the wall, trying not to think about what might be crawling on it. The stone is wet, but at least it's real. You run your fingers along its rough surface, feeling tiny gouges carved deep. Maybe initials, a tally, or something desperate. You squint, and in the low light filtering from the hallway, you think you can make out the letters A-V-E. Latin? Someone praying? Or maybe just the beginning of a scream etched into rock before the hand that made it was dragged away. It's hard to tell what's more unnerving, the things you can see or the things you can't. The darkness plays tricks. The cold messes with your sense of time. 1 minute stretches. Your thoughts spiral. You think you hear footsteps above you, or voices through the wall, but when you hold your breath, nothing. Silence so deep it squeezes your chest. Here's something strange. Some scholars believe that parts of these dungeons were designed specifically to disorient you. Sloped floors, false echoes, air vents that mimicked whispering voices when the wind hit just right. A kind of psychological torture, long before Freud was even born. Makes you wonder if you're imagining things, or if the dungeon is doing exactly what it was built to do. You curl into the corner, arms wrapped around your knees, trying to make your body smaller. The stone pulls heat from you like a jealous lover. Your teeth chatter, your toes have gone numb, and the straw you're lying on rustles again. You don't look, you just close your eyes and hope the dungeon sleeps tonight. You're not exactly sure how long you've been down here. Minutes? An hour? It's hard to measure time when the dark is the same shade of black whether your eyes are open or closed. But your body has been asking questions your mind doesn't want to answer, like, what crime did you commit? Who turned you in? And more importantly, did you even do anything? You go through the checklist in your head. You didn't steal anything, at least not on purpose. You didn't strike a noble, insult the church, or plot treason. Or, okay, nothing provable. But in this time and place, the bar for getting locked away in a dungeon is less of a bar and more of a smudged line in the dirt. You remember one old woman who vanished after refusing to kneel fast enough during Mass, and that boy who sold watered-down ale? Haven't seen him since spring. The truth is, it doesn't really matter what you did. It matters who saw it, and whether or not they had friends in armour. You try to remember the last few days, tracking the winding steps that led you here. There was a man watching you in the market. You brushed it off, told yourself he was just another drunk leaning against a barrel. But then you noticed the second one outside the inn, the one with the coin around his neck. A badge of some order maybe, or a bribe from someone richer than you. It all starts to make sense now. A staged accusation. A whispered deal. Someone needed you gone and the dungeon makes people disappear. It's like medieval delete. That's the ugly secret. Half the people who end up in here aren't criminals at all. They're liabilities. Rivals' convenient scapegoats. You think about the stories you've heard. One baker who refused to pay extra tax. Poof. Arrested for undermining the king's coin. A midwife accused of cursing a noble's newborn. That boy who carved obscene words into the church pew and got 5 years in a hole the size of a coffin. But don't worry, there's a system in place. Oh yes, medieval justice had its own kind of logic. You might face a trial. Might unless, of course, you're being held indefinitely for questioning, which can last as long as they need to hear what they want. And sometimes the questions aren't really questions at all. They're confessions waiting to be agreed to. And if you confess under duress, well, that counts. Sort of. Here's a curious little historical footnote for you. In some kingdoms, confessions were only valid if the accused repeated them after the torture had ended, freely, with clear mind. Because nothing says justice like trying to remember what you screamed between dislocations and branding irons. But your case? No one's explained it. No scroll. No charges read aloud. You were just taken. Which, weirdly enough, might be a clue. People who know what they're being charged with usually get faster trials, but you? You're probably part of something larger, messier, more political. Maybe you saw something you shouldn't have. Maybe your face looks a little too much like someone else's. Or maybe, just maybe, you made the wrong enemy. A faint noise breaks your spiraling thoughts. Someone's being moved. You hear metal, chains dragging across stone and boots. A slow, deliberate pace. Clink, step, clink, step. You hold your breath. The sounds get closer, echoing off the tunnel walls until it's impossible to tell if it's 10 feet or 10 inches away. Then it stops. A voice calls out, gruff, muffled by the stone but not unkind. By order of the steward, the cell is taken. Make room. You press back as the door to the next cell creaks open, iron grinding against iron. There's a shuffle, then a body slumps onto straw with a long, painful exhale. The door shuts again. Lock clicks. Silence returns. You wait a while, then, you awake? The voice is low, male, hoarse from thirst. You say yes, because why wouldn't you? I saw them writing something. I think it was a ledger. He coughs. If your name's in it, you might be here a while. Why, you ask? They don't write names for the quick ones. You don't ask what the quick ones are. You already suspect the answer. The man groans and shifts. You in for heresy? Theft? Treason? You hesitate. I don't know. There's a long pause. That's worse, he says quietly. That's when they're deciding. That's when they're deciding. It echoes in your head. You realise that right now, somewhere above you, people might be sitting in candlelit rooms, arguing over whether you're worth keeping alive. Maybe someone's already signed the paper. Maybe they haven't even opened it. And here's the part scholars still argue over. Was this all chaos, or was there method in the madness? Some say medieval justice was highly structured, just incredibly slow and riddled with superstition. Others believe it was pure theatre, who you knew, who you owed, and how loudly you screamed. Either way, the result's the same. You sit, you wait, you freeze. And oh, do you freeze? It's colder now. Not dramatically, just enough that your bones notice before your brain does. Your breath fogs like before, but this time it lingers longer, curls in the air like a warning. The straw has gone damp beneath you, probably your own sweat or maybe the frost creeping in. The stone is wet again too, and you swear you can hear ice cracking softly, like the dungeon itself is exhaling under pressure. You rub your hands together, useless. The cold is in your marrow now. No blanket, no cloak. You had one when you were dragged in, but it was taken for inventory, which probably means it's keeping a jailer warm 2 corridors over. Still, your cellmate's words hang in the air. They're deciding. It gives you a tiny thread of hope, or maybe dread. Either way, it means your story isn't finished. Not yet. And for now, that has to be enough. You wouldn't expect it to be so deliberate, but medieval dungeon design was basically the original anxiety factory. Everything down here seems built to unmake you. Mind first, then body. You start to notice it now, between shivers and moments of dull-eyed staring at the cracked ceiling. The walls aren't just stone. They're tight, close, almost leaning inward like they're trying to collapse onto you. The ceiling dips in the middle, low enough to make you duck when you stand, and the floor slopes just slightly toward one corner where the filth drains. You didn't notice it at first, but now that you're not moving, you realise your own weight keeps shifting that direction, like you're being slowly pulled toward the gutter. It's not a coincidence, not any of it. Medieval architects may have been building without laser levels or plumbing, but they absolutely understood how to use space to mess with your mind. The dungeon wasn't supposed to contain you. It was supposed to break you, slowly, quietly, efficiently. And wow, it is working. You shift on the straw and feel something sharp jab your side. Bone? Wood? You don't look. Some things are better left unidentified. It's not like there's a bed. Beds are for people who'll walk out of here with their titles intact. All you get is this semi-fermented nest that smells faintly of wet dog and yesterday's soup. Above you, the ceiling drips steadily, like a leaky nose, and every now and then something up there groans with the weight of stone shifting above it. What you're in is technically called a keep dungeon, the kind usually buried in the thickest part of the castle's lower levels, the kind only nobles or high-profile prisoners ended up in, either because you were too dangerous to keep anywhere else, or because you were important enough not to toss in a ditch. So, congratulations, you're apparently someone's problem. The corridor outside your cell is absurdly narrow, barely wide enough for 2 people to pass without brushing shoulders, and the walls seem to bend the torchlight like they're swallowing it whole. That's probably on purpose too. Less light, fewer shadows, less sense of depth. If your captors can't scare you with whips, they'll let the walls do it for them. You wonder if it ever worked on someone like you, someone who thought they were clever, smart enough to avoid this kind of fate. Because the thing is, every stone down here feels like it's been moulded by suffering. There's a stain just outside your bars, dark, old, could be blood, could be wine. But something in your gut says it's the first one. You press your ear to the wall, curious about your neighbour, the one who said your name might be in a ledger. You're not even sure why. Maybe you're hoping for some kind of connection, something that reminds you that you're still a person, not just a sack of flesh waiting to be judged. But all you hear now is slow breathing and a muted cough. He's either asleep or trying really hard to pretend this whole thing isn't happening. Can't blame him. Now here's a weird historical twist you probably didn't expect. Not all dungeons were below ground. In fact, in some parts of Europe, the worst prison cells were actually above the ground in towers. Hot in the summer, freezing in the winter, completely exposed to the elements. but the psychological advantage of putting someone beneath the castle. That was too juicy to ignore. It said, "You are below us in every way. Physically, socially, spiritually. You belong with the worms. And yet, this place isn't without its bizarre comforts. The silence, while heavy, has a kind of rhythm. The dripping water marks time better than any sundial, and the damp smell, though disgusting, is consistent. There's a weird safety in it. No surprises. Just the same grey nothingness soaking into your bones minute by minute. You could almost doze off if you weren't so freezing. Almost. That's when you hear a clang. Sharp, close, boots. They're back. The sound of footsteps against stone is unmistakable, measured and slow, like someone daring you to flinch before they get to your door. You sit up, spine prickling, heart pumping. You tell yourself to breathe slow. No reason to panic. They could just be checking cells, or delivering food, or dragging someone off for questions. Please not you, please not you, please not you. The steps stop right outside your cell. Keys rattle. A cough, this one deeper, phlegmy. The kind of cough that tells you the person behind it enjoys his job way too much and doesn't wash his hands. The door creaks open just a crack. Then a face peers in, wrinkled, bearded, half a smile that's more a habit than an expression. The man holds up a single candle stub, the wax dripping over his fingers like tiny bones. "Well," he says, voice gravelly, "you're still breathing?" "Good for you." You don't respond. That seems safest. "I'm just here to see if you're still sane enough to scream later," he continues with a casual shrug. "Orders from above. You know how it is." Then, as casually as if he were discussing the weather, he tosses something through the bars. It lands in the straw with a wet thump. Bread. Sort of. It's more mould than grain, crusty on the outside, gummy within, and it smells faintly of sour milk and sadness. "Try not to eat it all at once," he chuckles, turning away. "Dinner's better if you pretend it's rat." He disappears down the hallway, humming a tune so cheerful it makes your skin crawl. Your stomach growls, unsure whether it's interest or protest. You haven't eaten since the road, and that was just a piece of dried meat and an onion. Your fingers are numb, but you manage to pull the bread closer, inspecting it like it might bite back. There's something hard inside. You break it open and find a sliver of bone. Yep, rat bread. You take a bite anyway. Hunger wins. From the other cell, a faint voice croaks. "You gonna finish that?" You choke a laugh, and for a second, just a second, you almost feel human again. The smell hits you before your eyes even adjust to the vague grey of morning, if you can call this hour that. It's not the fresh, crisp chill of a new day. Number. This is the kind of air that's already been exhaled by 100 mouths and soaked up by 1,000 filthy stones. You're breathing in the dungeon itself now. Every gasp fills your lungs with cold rot, sweat-drenched mould, and a sour, lingering stench that somehow hovers between body odour, excrement, and mildew stew. Your nose has mostly gone numb to it, but every once in a while, especially when the straw shifts, you get a fresh bouquet of aromas that seem engineered to insult your dignity. You press your sleeve to your face, but the sleeve smells worse. It's your own skin now. You're becoming part of this place, whether you like it or not. If you'd asked a medieval prisoner what the worst part of dungeon life was, odds are they wouldn't say the chains or the cold or the rats. They'd say the smell, the way it clings, the way it soaks your clothes, your hair, your thoughts, the way it stays with you, even in memory. Monks who visited condemned prisoners often noted that they could still smell the cell days later, even after burning incense and washing with rosewater. And you? You're living in it. The moisture never goes away. The walls sweat, the air sticks to your skin, and every surface feels like it's covered in a layer of something alive. You shift slightly and feel the straw stick to your back. You're not bleeding, but the straw's texture makes you check anyway. It's that scratchy, that organic, that foul. You catch movement out of the corner of your eye, just a flicker. Small, fast, you brace, wait. Then, there, a rat. Not a cute storybook rat, but a real one. Fat, wet-furred, long-tailed, confident. It saunters past like it owns the place. Probably does. You eye each other for a moment and you swear it's judging you. Then it disappears through a gap in the wall you hadn't noticed before. So that's where they come from. You briefly consider blocking it off, but then again, maybe they're better company than the humans. You lean back against the stone and hear it. Another moan. Not yours this time. Not the wheezy old man in the next cell either. This one's new. From farther down the corridor, a kind of long, drawn-out exhale, like someone trying not to cry. You close your eyes and breathe through your mouth, which doesn't help. The taste in the air is thick, like wet iron and forgotten cheese. You hear a faint squish as you shift again, probably your own sweat pooling in the folds of your tunic. Lovely. You glance at the wall beside you. There's a faint trail carved into the stone, maybe claw marks, or maybe just someone trying to keep count. It's hard to tell. You reach out, dragging your fingers across the grooves. 5 vertical, then a slash across. 5 vertical, then a slash. 20 times. Then it stops. 101 days, or maybe someone just gave up counting. Now here's where things get weird, because according to some historical accounts, the truly unfortunate prisoners in medieval dungeons preferred this kind of misery to what was above ground. Seriously, there are writings from the time claiming some inmates begged to stay in their cold, wet cells rather than face open punishment in the square, because the square meant public shame. Whipping posts, stocks, tar, mockery. At least down here no one's laughing at you, except maybe the guards. You hear one of them now, somewhere up the corridor, laughing hard at something. A deep belly-shaking laugh that echoes through the walls like thunder. Followed by another voice, higher, thinner, whining about someone's little accident. Then more laughter. You try not to imagine what the accident was. It's strange how quickly you adapt. A day ago the smell was unbearable. Now it's just there. A backdrop. You sit differently now too. Knees up, arms tucked close, chin down, to keep your heat from escaping. Your posture has curled inward like a drying leaf. It's instinct, this shrinking of yourself. Self-preservation in slow motion. And here's a quirky detail. In some dungeons, there were no individual cells at all. Just one big room, packed with people, disease spreading like gossip, fights breaking out over scraps and the smell, intensified by 100-fold. Consider yourself lucky. At least you get your own little hell to wallow in, but that doesn't mean you're alone. Not exactly. You hear them. Others. Murmuring, coughing, praying softly in Latin. One voice closer by sings a lullaby under their breath, rocking slightly back and forth if the creaking is any clue. A lullaby. That gets you. Some poor soul singing themselves to sleep in the dark. The candle stub you were given, well, it's gone now. Melted into a small puddle of wax on the floor. You didn't even get light from it, really. Just the idea of light. But now even that's disappeared, and the cold seems to push in harder, more confident in the dark. You try not to think about your body. Your feet are soaked and numb. Your fingers feel like someone else's. You realise with a quiet horror that you haven't urinated in what feels like ages. Or maybe you have. Maybe the cold's tricked you. You look down and the straw is still damp, best not to look too long. The wall is your only real comfort now. It's solid. Real. You lean your forehead against it and close your eyes. Behind you, something rustles again. Another rat. Maybe the same one. You don't care. Let it crawl on you. Let it nest in your clothes. What else can it take? You open your mouth and speak softly into the wall. Why? No one answers. But the stone listens. At some point, maybe a few hours after the rat incident, or maybe just a few minutes later, you become acutely aware that you're not alone. Not in the spiritual sense, not in the philosophical, we're all suffering together kind of way. No, this is more primal. There's someone else in your cell block. Someone breathing. At first it's easy to pretend the sound is yours, an echo of your own shallow breaths bouncing off the stones. But then the rhythm changes. Yours goes fast. The other one doesn't. It stays slow, measured, deliberate. You turn your head just enough to catch movement across the hall, or maybe 2 cells down. A pair of eyes glint in the flickering light from a far-off torch. Not the full face, just the eyes, watching, wide open, too wide. You swallow. Your throat is raw and dry and your voice comes out more like a rustle of fabric than a word. Hello? Silence. Then a wet cough, and a rasp of a voice so low it barely registers as human. What did they say you did? The question hangs there, trembling between you like a cobweb. You want to answer, but your mouth fails. What do you say? I don't know. Seems both too much and not enough. I didn't, you finally mutter. A rustle from the other cell. You think he's shifting, maybe sitting up. None of us did. The voice is old. Maybe not in years, but in where. It's seen too many cold floors, too many interrogations, too many midnights that never led to dawn. You try to peer through the darkness. It's impossible to make out his features, but the shape is there. Thin, hunched, arms wrapped around legs in the universal posture of long-term despair. You can feel the weight of him from across the corridor, not his body, his time. Been here long, you ask, and he laughs. It's quiet but bitter, like someone coughing up regret. Long enough that I stopped hoping the door would open, long enough that I started hoping it wouldn't. You don't know what to say to that. What can you say? Sorry sounds useless, so you stay quiet. He speaks again, softer this time. They took my brother. Thought we were part of a rebellion. We weren't, just farmers. But we knew someone who knew someone. A pause. That's all it takes. You let that settle. It's not exactly new information. You've always known that guilt in these walls is a matter of proximity, but hearing it said out loud makes it colder somehow. He shifts again. You'll hear them soon. The others. The others? He exhales through his nose. The ones they broke. A chill moves through you that has nothing to do with the stone floor. They don't cry anymore, he says. They hum, or mutter prayers. Sometimes they just scratch at the walls. You'll hear it. Sounds like rats at first, but it's fingernails. Just people trying to scrape a hole into somewhere else. He isn't trying to scare you. That's the most unnerving part. He's just stating facts. Like the sky's blue, and the floor is wet, and humans aren't built to survive this kind of quiet. You suddenly notice your own hands have been moving. Thumb against fingertip, rubbing in small circles. Something to do. Something to remind yourself that you're still a living creature, and not some breathing object left to rot in a corner. You look around your cell again, more closely this time. The walls bear stories, if you care to read them. Carvings, crude, uneven, made by desperate hands. Names scratched into stone, some in Latin, some in symbols, a few in languages you don't even recognize. There's a crude drawing of a bird, one of a ship, someone's attempt at a sun. You feel something stir in your chest. Not hope exactly, but maybe the ghost of it. Whoever made these carvings, at least they tried. They imagined something else, something beyond these walls. Birds, ships, skies. It's a quiet form of rebellion. Your cellmate groans in the next cell, then softly, almost too softly to catch. They'll come tonight. You stiffen. Who? He doesn't answer. You press your back to the wall and listen harder. It's silent now. Even the dripping water has paused, like the whole dungeon is holding its breath. But then, faintly, so faintly, you hear it. A soft hum. One note, then another. Out of tune. From farther down. You try to tell yourself it's someone singing to themselves, maybe comforting a cellmate. But no, this isn't a song. It's more like an echo. A sound repeated out of habit, not meaning. Like a wind chime made from cracked voices. And now you hear the scratching too, not close, just far enough to make your skin crawl. You lie down, not because you're tired, but because you need to pretend there's some kind of routine, that your day ends with sleep, that there's still a difference between day and night. Fun historical tidbit. The concept of solitary confinement as we know it didn't really exist back then. Dungeons were usually communal, or at least semi-communal, but that didn't stop them from isolating people in subtler ways. They just put you close enough to others to hear their madness without being able to reach them. Psychological torture via proximity. You close your eyes and try to breathe slow. You think of the bird etched into the wall, maybe a sparrow or a dove. You imagine it fluttering through the air, wings catching sunlight, a distant field, a warm loaf of bread, human voices laughing. Then someone screams, not nearby, not quite far either. A scream that starts sharp and then warbles into something ragged and wet, like the person ran out of voice before they ran out of pain. You don't move, don't breathe. You just lie there, eyes open in the dark, heart pounding like it's trying to crawl out of your chest. Eventually the silence returns, but it's changed. Now it's heavier. You listen again. And from your neighbour's cell a whisper. They're just getting started. There's no sun down here, no bell-tolling hours, no flickering candle marking the slow march of time. So you don't know what part of the night it is, only that it is night, the kind that presses on your chest like a weight and makes your breath come out ragged. You haven't moved in what feels like hours. and yet your muscles ache like you've run through an entire battlefield in your sleep. You try not to think about the scream from earlier, but of course that's impossible. It's like trying to ignore a toothache. It's dull now, yes, but still there, throbbing in the back of your mind. You can hear it replaying over and over again, that high, keening note at the start, the break halfway through, that last sickly gurgle. You can't forget it. You don't even know who screamed. Maybe it was the man 3 cells down, or the young boy you glimpsed when you first arrived, arms too thin for the shackles they gave him. Or maybe it was someone newly brought in, fresh, still soft. Your cellmate hasn't spoken again. The old man, if he's even still there, has gone quiet, maybe asleep, maybe finally given in to the slow rot of despair. Or maybe he knows something you don't and has decided not to share. That makes you think, what are the rules down here? Is there a code, a hierarchy? Is it every prisoner for themselves, or is there some unwritten law? Don't steal bread, don't scream too loud, don't speak unless spoken to? It's hard to tell. Everyone you've encountered seems wrapped in their own version of silence. A silence made not of peace, but of survival. You let your fingers drift to the chain bolted into the wall beside you. It's short, maybe 4 feet long, connected to a thick iron collar you weren't even awake for when they put it on. You can't see the collar, but you felt it every time you try to roll over. It's just tight enough to remind you you're owned, that your neck, like your future, is not your own. Which brings you to the question you've been avoiding. Is this even legal? Well, let's define legal in the medieval sense. Law back then wasn't what you'd call standardized. It was more like a stew of royal decrees, local customs, church doctrine, and noble whims. Trial by combat? Sure. Trial by ordeal. Boiling water, hot irons, or a nice swim to see if you float? Absolutely. If you were a peasant, justice was mostly about how expendable you were. If you were a noble, it was about who you'd angered. And if you were neither, well, welcome to the dungeon lottery. You start remembering fragments from village gossip. Stories about men imprisoned for speaking Latin too well, or women accused of witchcraft after giving birth to twins. Superstition wasn't just folklore, it was law. It filled in the gaps where logic took a nap. And the church? Oh, the church was always watching. Not all dungeons were royal. Some were monastic, run by abbots with authority to imprison heretics, blasphemers, and the spiritually suspicious. You glance around your cell and wonder if this is one of those places. The symbol scratched into the wall could be religious. Maybe someone's desperate Hail Marys, or maybe curses. You never know. Half the monks could read. The other half just made it up. Here's something odd. Some prisoners requested to be locked away. Not because they were guilty, but because they feared for their lives outside. A corrupt landlord. A vengeful knight. If you could convince the steward you were in danger, the dungeon might be safer than the streets. Imagine that. Choosing this over freedom. You shift your weight again, and your hip presses against the stone floor. It feels colder than before, like it's absorbing your warmth with malicious intent. The straw is nearly soaked now, not from water, but from your own body. Sweat, or maybe fever. You can't tell anymore. Everything feels damp. The wetness is in your clothes, your hair, even your breath. And then the silence is broken. A scraping. Not a rap this time. No, this is heavier, deliberate, like something metal being dragged. You freeze. The sound grows louder, closer. It's coming down the hallway. Your skin tightens. Muscles coil. You don't want to look, but you do. A flicker of orange appears against the far wall, torchlight. Someone's coming. Not in a rush. Not in anger. Calm. Like they have all the time in the world. You shift to the edge of your cell and peer through the bars. A figure appears. One of the guards, maybe. A tall man, cloaked, dragging something behind him. A chain. Number. A device. Long. Made of iron and wood. You can't make out the details, but it's not for warmth or comfort, that's for sure. He stops at a cell 3 doors down. You hear a key slide into a lock. Then a creak. Then... Out. The voice is low. Authority soaked in apathy. A whimper. Movement. Someone is being hauled from the cell, then something that freezes your blood. A scream. Not loud, not like before. Just a small, broken sob that doesn't even get past the threshold of a proper wail. A plea. And then the sound of flesh against stone and metal clinking. The figure drags the prisoner away, the torchlight recedes, the scraping fades, you're left in darkness again. But this time, the silence feels purposeful, like it's waiting. You lie back, heart hammering. What was that device? The rack? A strappado? One of the more creative ones, like the Pear of Anguish? The books you read didn't prepare you for this. Not really. It all sounded theatrical on the page, but down here, with that scent still lingering in your nose and your ears ringing with that soft sob, it's terrifying in a way that defies imagination. You pull the straw closer around you and try to make yourself small. There are no rules here, no rights, not even the illusion of fairness, just whims, orders, darkness, and men who drag iron tools down long corridors hunting for screams. It's hard to say what's worse, the hunger or the anticipation of hunger, the way your stomach coils in on itself like a dying thing, or the way your brain starts imagining food you'll never taste again. Bread, real bread, with a crust that crunches and a centre still warm from the hearth, maybe a bit of salted butter. You try not to think about it, but the mind is a traitor, and right now yours is cooking feasts while your body starves. Your last meal still sits like a rock in your gut, that mouldy, bone-studded lump of bread the guard tossed you. You ate it because you had to, because even rats gnawing at it later would be preferable to it going to waste. But now your body's demanding more, like it forgot where you are. There's no meal bell down here, no generous ladle from a communal pot, just the distant hope that someone will eventually toss another lump your way, and that the rats won't get to it first. And sure enough, it happens. Hours pass, or maybe a day. You're not sure anymore. But eventually boots return, heavy ones marching without urgency. You hear the familiar rattle of keys, the squeal of hinges, the unmistakable grunt of effort as the guard hoists open a rusty iron slot in the bottom of your cell door. Feast time, he says, voice laced with sarcasm thick enough to cut with a spoon, which of course you don't have. Something is shoved through the opening and lands on the floor with a wet plop. You crawl toward it like a dog. It's a bowl, or something vaguely bowl-shaped. Maybe it was clay once. Now it's mostly grime and finger-smooth sludge. Inside is soup? That would be generous. It's more like broth that forgot what flavour is, flecked with tiny specks of something green, and a couple of unidentifiable floating objects. You tell yourself it's barley, you hope it's barley. There's no spoon, of course, no bread on the side. Just the bowl and whatever dignity you've managed to hold on to, which isn't much, because in about 10 seconds you're on your knees, cupping the rim in your hands, slurping like a desperate animal. It tastes like water that's been strained through a boot, and yet, somehow, it's the best thing you've had in days. From the next cell, the old man chuckles. "Must be Sunday," he wheezes. You almost laugh. Almost. But the liquid hits your stomach like it's trying to escape back up, and you end up gagging instead. You clutch the bowl tighter, can't waste it. This might be the last thing you eat for another day, or 2 or 5. And here's the truth. Medieval prisoners didn't get regular meals. They got what the guards felt like giving them, or what other prisoners' families could afford to send. If you had no one on the outside, well, you hoped the jailer had a soft spot, or a gambling problem you could exploit, or that Noble somewhere accidentally scribbled your name onto a pardon. It wasn't uncommon for inmates to die of starvation long before any trial was ever scheduled. The law didn't say you had to be fed, just that you had to be held. And a dead prisoner was still technically held, especially if the body didn't get discovered for a while. And that's not even getting into the water situation. Your drinking source is a trickle of brownish liquid running down the wall near the drain corner. It smells like rust and feet. You've used it anyway, several times now, and every time you tell yourself this is the last time. But then the thirst creeps in, and your mouth feels like it's lined with wool, and the idea of dying from dehydration seems stupider than risking a little dysentery. The worst part? Your body is starting to normalize it. The awful food, the rank water, the way you flinch every time footsteps approach, like your muscles have developed their own religion and the guards are gods of wrath. Your skin itches constantly now. Lice, maybe, or fleas, or just the sensation of being slowly consumed by your own sweat and the creatures nesting in your hair. You've started scratching without noticing, long, slow scrapes down your arms, your legs, behind your neck. You've even cut yourself a few times, tiny lines that sting when you move. It's becoming your only form of stimulation. And here's a disgusting historical detail. Guards would sometimes let lice-infest prisoners on purpose. Not because they enjoyed torture, though, okay, sometimes they did, but because it made people easier to control. It distracted them, weakened them, made them less likely to rebel. You can't plan an escape if you're too busy scratching at your scalp and muttering about imaginary bugs crawling up your spine. You finish the bowl of whatever that was and set it carefully to the side. Your fingers are trembling now, whether from cold, hunger, or pure exhaustion, you're not sure. You lie down again. Not to sleep. Sleep is more of a theory than a reality at this point, but to rest your eyes, to pretend your spine isn't aching and your ankles aren't chafing from the shackles that bite in just enough to remind you you don't belong to yourself anymore. Then comes a sound you hadn't expected. Laughter, light, high-pitched, almost musical. You sit up. It's not the guard. It's not the old man. It's someone else. A woman, maybe, or a boy with a voice not yet changed. It echoes down the corridor, rising like steam from somewhere deeper in the dungeon. And it's not mocking, not cruel, just laughter. Strange and unmoored, like the sound itself forgot what joy means and decided to try anyway. You listen, stunned. For a moment it almost lifts you, like a gust of wind through a tiny crack in the stone. You forget the smell, the taste of rat soup, the damp straw glued to your back. Then it stops, cut off like a rope snapping mid-tug. The silence after is deafening. You wonder if that was a person, someone finally broken into madness, or someone pretending to be mad, which is almost worse. A performance for the guards, or maybe just a way to keep the dark from swallowing them whole. You lie back down, stomach turning, not from the soup, from the realization that tomorrow's meal, if it comes, will taste exactly the same, and you'll still be here. The itch wakes you. Or maybe it's the cold, or maybe the whisper of tiny claws over your bare ankle. You're not sure anymore. Everything's blending together now. The numbness, the wetness, the creeping sensation of little things burrowing, crawling, nesting. You lift your head, hair matted to your forehead with sweat and grime, and look down at your legs. In the half-light of some forgotten torch flickering beyond your cell, you catch them moving. Not dozens, hundreds. Rats. They're bolder now, no longer scurrying in brief, cautious dashes. These ones linger. Watch. One perches on the edge of your broken bowl, sniffing at the crusted remnants of last night's soup like a sommelier inspecting a vintage. Another darts across your shin, its tail like a cold rope dragging over your skin. You want to scream, but your throat feels like sandpaper. So you just close your eyes and press your back harder against the wall, trying to disappear into it. You'd heard about this, of course. Everyone has. The rats in the dungeons, fearless and fat from easy meals. Historical records, even the rare official ones, mention it with chilling indifference. Prisoners devoured in part by vermin. Just a line, nothing more. No flourish, no moral outrage. Just a biological fact. You are meat, and the dungeon is full of mouths. You slap at one as it sniffs your hand, and it hisses before vanishing into the shadowed hole near the drain. You won this round. Barely. But you know it'll be back. They always come back. The food is good here, and you, my friend, are the buffet. But the rats aren't the worst part. The worst part is what's happening to your skin. You're scratching again. You've been scratching in your sleep, so much so that you've torn through parts of your tunic. There are bloodstains now. Tiny red marks running like maps across your forearms, the inside of your elbows, your thighs. It's not the cold. It's not your imagination. Something is living on you. And no, it's not poetic, it's lice. You remember childhood stories about lice, peasants dealing with them like bad weather. But the way it feels now, this constant wriggling under your clothes, the invisible feet marching along your scalp, the way you claw at your collar until your neck bleeds. It's not just gross, it's erasure. You're not a person anymore. You're a host, a vehicle, a warm patch of flesh to be fed on. You whisper to yourself. Nonsense, prayers, memories, just to hear your own voice. It grounds you. A little. Not much. You remember your mother's hands, the smell of apples in the fall, a tune someone once sang while working in the fields. These things are precious now, weapons against whatever's taking over. You glance toward the bars again. Across the hall, the old man, he's still there, barely a silhouette now, sits against the wall, knees pulled tight. He hasn't moved in hours. You think he might be dead. You almost hope he is. Still breathing, you ask, voice rough, a cough low and lazy. Barely. Do the rats ever stop? No, he says, but sometimes they change their minds and chew the straw instead. That's your best night. You nod, then scratch again. You can feel the eggs now, tiny bumps behind your ears, near the base of your skull. You've become aware of your own infestation. Congratulations. That's level 2 of dungeon life. Here's a little-known medieval curiosity. Some believed lice were divine punishment, not just poor hygiene. They were a physical manifestation of sin, God's way of reminding you that your soul had begun to rot. Priests would sometimes refuse last rites to lice-infested prisoners, arguing that they were already claimed by judgment. Kind of puts a new spin on your scratching habit, doesn't it? You wonder what yours are punishment for. You still don't know what crime you're here for. That mystery, oddly enough, is the only thing keeping your mind alive. You turn it over and over like a puzzle. Was it someone you insulted? Someone you trusted? Or was it nothing at all? Wrong place, wrong time, wrong name, a scribe's error, a lazy signature. Maybe your neighbour upstairs wanted your land. Maybe someone just needed to fill a cell. A clink, you flinch, but it's nothing. Just the chain at your collar shifting as you scratch. You're learning the soundscape of this place now. The difference between real threats and the background music of misery. The rustle of straw is not always danger. Sometimes it's just someone else shifting. The echo of a cough can bounce 3 cells over. The dragging of chains doesn't always mean someone's being taken. Sometimes they're just trying to move and forgot they're still shackled. But the truly horrifying sounds, the ones that set every nerve on fire, those are still unmistakable. Voices coming closer, not footsteps this time, not laughter or screaming. Whispers, unclear, intentional. You strain to hear, you catch fragments. Took him, didn't come back. They opened the wrong cell, no one's in there now. Ghost, maybe. You inch closer to the bars. Are they talking about someone who escaped? Someone who vanished? Or did a prisoner die and the body went unnoticed for so long it just dissolved into legend? You've read enough to know this. Dungeons were rarely well managed. Records were lost, bodies misplaced, cells reused without clearing the old stains. There are accounts of people discovered years later, skeletons still chained to walls no one remembered sealing off. You wonder how many ghosts walk this corridor. Not the spooky kind, with chains and wailing. The real ones. The ones who never got a name on parchment. The ones whose bones were swept into a corner and forgotten. Maybe you'll be one of them. You lie back again, arms crossed over your chest, trying to create a shield between your body and the things crawling on it. You don't cry. There's no energy for that. You just stare at the ceiling and wonder. If you did die here, would anyone come looking? Would anyone know your name? Or would the rats get to it first? You don't even flinch when the laughter starts again. That's how far you've slipped. It starts faint, distant, almost cheerful, but it rolls toward you like a storm front. A man's voice this time, high-pitched with madness, then dipping into low, almost melodic growling, as if he's telling jokes only he understands. It's not directed at anyone, or maybe it is, but the target isn't in this world anymore. The sound echoes down the stone hallway, bouncing between the iron bars like a hymn in reverse. It goes on for minutes, then it stops. You wait. Nothing. A moment later, a wet-sounding cough cuts through the silence, followed by a sharp metallic clink, like someone yanking their chains against the wall. You know the sound too well by now. That tug of desperation, that last-ditch hope that maybe, just maybe, the rusted loop will give way. It won't. It never does. You press your cheek to the wall, hoping the cold will help calm the fever creeping up behind your eyes. The lice, the filth, the sleepless nights, the hunger. It's all coming together now in a kind of toxic harmony. You feel like a soup that's been simmering too long, reduced to a thick, miserable paste of thoughts and smells and skin. You're losing yourself, and you can feel it. You whisper a name, your own, just to make sure you still remember it. And even that feels strange. Foreign. Like you're saying someone else's secret aloud. The person who had that name lived in a house, wore clean clothes, had teeth that didn't ache and hands that didn't tremble. That person is gone. And the guards, they've noticed. They always do. There's a change in their tone now when they walk past your cell. Less threatening, more amused. You catch snatches of conversation. Look at this one mutters. Doesn't blink anymore. Another laughs. Won't be long now. You're the evening entertainment, a bit of human theatre between rounds of ale and cards. Once you caught one of them watching you too long through the bars. Not cruelly, just curiously, like he was trying to decide whether you were still a person or already something else. He didn't say anything, just stood there with a mug in his hand and a slack-jawed expression, then moved on. You wanted to shout something, to remind him that you're not furniture, but you didn't. You couldn't, because somewhere deep down you weren't sure anymore. Now, if you want to understand medieval psychology, here's a fun little wrinkle. A lot of jailers believed they were doing God's work. Seriously. Torture was mercy, because it could purify the soul. Pain could lead to confession, and confession could lead to salvation. So technically, every beating, every sleepless night, every disease-spreading rat was a favour. You weren't just being punished, you were being prepared for heaven. You wonder how many of them actually believed that, or if they just needed an excuse to be cruel, because the cruelty isn't always loud. Sometimes it's casual, a bucket of water tossed just out of reach, a key jangled and then pocketed, a guard taking bets on how long it'll take you to start talking to yourself. Sometimes they don't even speak, they just laugh. And that laughter sounds like a promise you don't want cashed in. One night, or was it last night, a younger guard came by. You remember because he smelled like clean linen, like soap. He didn't say anything, but he paused at your cell and looked at you. Not the way the others do. He didn't smirk, he didn't mock, just looked. His eyes were young, not hard yet. He crouched, and for a second, you thought he might say something. But then an older guard shouted from the corridor, and the moment passed. He stood and left without a word. You think about him more than you should, because down here, mercy is rarer than food. And here's another strange fact. Some prisoners developed full-on relationships with their guards, Stockholm Syndrome before Stockholm had a name. Not because the guards were kind, but because they were the only people left. Even cruelty can feel like connection when you're drowning in silence. You shift on the straw again, wincing as your hip bone presses into the floor. The skin there is rubbed raw now, almost blistered. You don't know what's worse, moving or staying still. Movement hurts, stillness itches. Your body is no longer a home, it's a prison within a prison. And still, the guards laugh. You hear it again now, closer this time. Two voices, talking low. Then one bursts into chuckles. Remember the noble we had down here last year, one says. Cried when we took his shoes. The other snorts. Cried when we took his name. They both laugh. And in that moment you realise something. That's what's happening to you. Not just the body breaking down, not just the hunger or the cold or the rats. They're taking your name, yourself. That part of you that knew who you were, what you valued, what made you you. They're not even trying that hard. Just leaving you here and letting the dungeon do the work. You suddenly feel an overwhelming urge to speak. Not to scream, not to beg. Just to talk. To hear yourself. To say something out loud that matters. So you whisper the first thing that comes to your mind. A sentence, a story, a joke. But your voice cracks. Nothing comes out. You try again. Still nothing. So you close your eyes. And for the first time since you arrived, you picture yourself from the outside. A shape, curled in the corner of a cell. Clothes tattered, lips dry, eyes sunken. And for a moment you don't even recognize the person you see. And from the corridor comes another burst of laughter. But this time you're not sure if it's theirs or yours. It starts with footsteps, slow, heavy, dragging, like something reluctant is being pulled toward its doom. You've learned to tell the difference between pacing guards and real movement. This one's purposeful. It has that quiet tension behind it, like air just before a lightning strike. You sit up, or at least you try. Your spine protests, stiff from too many hours curled on a stone floor, but curiosity outranks comfort now. Chains rattle. You hear them clinking and scraping behind the approaching steps, as if someone's being escorted. Not quickly, not in a rush, like time is irrelevant. Whoever this is, they're not being marched, they're being led. Then the murmuring starts. Low voices, reverent almost. You catch a few words. Ready the table. He's due. Steward's orders. You feel it before you see it. The shift in atmosphere, like the dungeon itself is preparing. The air thickens. The usual background moans and coughs fade into silence. Even the rats retreat to their corners. It's like the whole place holds its breath. The man passes your cell. He's hooded, flanked by two guards. His hands are chained in front of him, and his face is hidden, bowed low. You glimpse fingers, long, trembling, smeared with something dark that might be blood or ink. His robe is stained, torn in places. You wonder if he's a monk, or once was. You're about to turn away when he looks at you. His eyes find yours through the bars, just for a second. A blink. But there's something in them that roots you to the floor. Not fear, not even pain. Just resignation. Like he's already left his body behind and the shell's just finishing the trip. Then he's gone, dragged farther down toward a part of the dungeon you haven't seen, haven't heard, not until now. A door groans open. You don't see it, but you hear it. Thick hinges, rusted, heavy. Beyond it, a different kind of darkness, the kind that smells of scorched metal and old secrets. Then the screams begin, not the kind you've heard before, not instinctual, sudden wails of someone in pain. These are calculated, stretched, built for duration. You feel each one like a ripple in your gut, like your own body is remembering pains it hasn't experienced yet. There's rhythm to it. Groan, sob, shriek, silence, repeat. The other prisoners hear it too. You feel them stir. Some turn away, some whimper. One further down starts reciting a prayer, barely audible, each line trembling more than the last. Sancte Michael Arcangeli, defenda nos in proelio. You don't know the Latin well, but the cadence is familiar. Protection against evil, against devils. You almost join in. Almost. Instead, you listen. Not because you want to, because you have to. Your brain latches onto the sound, trying to make sense of it, trying to map the pain. Is that the rack, or the iron boot? Are they using the pear, or just fire? You remember reading about these things in hushed corners of books, wide-eyed as a child, thinking they were barbaric curiosities, remnants of a darker time. But here, in the dark, they're real. They're not relics. They're tools. And they're working. A guard passes by and glances at you. "Don't look so pale," he says, grinning. "You're not up next." Probably. He laughs and moves on, his torch casting long, flickering shadows across the hall. The scream rises again, falters, then cuts off entirely. A wet sound follows, something collapsing. Maybe a body, maybe a bucket, maybe both. The silence after is worse, because it invites your imagination to play. Here's a historical curiosity. Torture wasn't always about information. Sometimes it was symbolic, a demonstration of power, a warning to others. In some regions, confessions extracted under torture were legally valid. In others, they had to be confirmed later, when the accused wasn't actively screaming. That little detail, often ignored. There were also torturers with reputations, men known by name whose techniques were whispered about in taverns like ghost stories. One famous executioner reportedly said, "It is not the breaking of the body, but the bending of the soul that is our true craft." Charming, your thoughts spiral. What would you say to make it stop? What truth would you invent just to be carried back to your cell instead of dragged deeper into that corridor of screams? You try to steel yourself. "I'd say anything," you whisper. "Anything." From the next cell, the old man groans softly. "We all do." You crawl to the bars, your voice suddenly dry and brittle. What do they do down there? He doesn't answer right away. You hear him shift. Then, they peel you down to the truth. You blink. What truth? The one they already decided. You sit back. That makes too much sense. This place isn't about discovery. It's about confirmation. You're not innocent or guilty. You're just waiting for the paperwork to catch up with your punishment. Somewhere above you, a bell tolls once. Low. Measured. You didn't even know there was a bell. You wonder if that means someone has died, or if it means someone's turn is over, or maybe it's just dinner. You let your head rest against the stone. You ache everywhere. Your jaw, your knees, even your fingernails hurt. You close your eyes and tell yourself it won't be you, that you're not important enough to be tortured, that you'll rot here quietly and forgetfully. But deep down, you know better. The door opened tonight. That means it can open again, and next time, it might be for you. The next time you wake up, if you even slept at all, it's because of a whisper. Not one of those hazy, half-dreamed sounds your mind invents in the dark. No, this one is real, human, close. You lift your head slowly, joints crackling like old parchment, and strain your ears. It's coming from the cell beside yours, not the old man, but someone new. A voice you haven't heard before. low and conspiratorial, like the kind of voice that tells secrets behind market stalls or under confession booths. "Hey," it hisses. "Hey, you. You listening?" You sit up, more out of instinct than interest. This isn't the first whisperer you've encountered. Most of them don't last long. Too loud, too hopeful, too noticed. But something about this one sounds sharp, grounded. "I saw you watching when they took the monk," the voice continues. "You saw the hallway. You shuffle closer to the bars. Your knees scrape raw straw and stone, and something unpleasantly wet beneath it all. I saw the guards drag him," you murmur, "and I saw the door." "Good," the voice says. "Then you know where the gate is. The outer one. The one not chained." You blink. That's a dangerous sentence. Too dangerous. Even uttering words like gate and unchained can be considered incitement, even if it's a lie. Especially if it's a lie. You hesitate. You're talking about escape. A short, bitter laugh from the other cell. "No, I'm talking about a scenic stroll through the torture room for fresh air." Of course I'm talking about escape. You lean in closer, your heartbeat doing that twitchy thing it does when something unbelievable starts to sound just barely possible. "I've been here longer than most," the whisperer goes on. "Not as long as that relic across from me, but long enough to know who gets out, and how." People get out, you ask, before realizing how stupid that question sounds. Not many, but it happens. Mostly when someone with a title pays gold to make it happen. But sometimes it's more creative. You hear movement, shifting straw, the clink of a loose chain, then a whisper just slightly closer. There's a hatch. Behind the racks. Past the pillar. Old drainage tunnel. They sealed it during the last plague, but not well. You frown. You've heard of plague tunnels before. During outbreaks, some dungeons were connected to underground passageways used to remove bodies discreetly. Supposedly, most were bricked up once the disease passed, or once the stench got too much even for a torturer's nose. You've seen it, you ask, trying not to let hope creep into your voice. Hope is flammable down here. Dangerous. "I've seen the brick. I've heard the rats on the other side. The air is colder near it. That's how you know. You consider it. Then you do something dangerous. You ask the question you swore you'd never ask. How do I get there?" There's a long pause. Then the voice, softer now, replies, "That depends on how much you're willing to risk." You lean your forehead against the cold iron bars. "Everything," you say, and you mean it. Not because you believe in freedom, not because you think you'll make it, but because if you don't try, you'll die in this hole with nothing but rat bites, and a first name no one will ever speak again. "Then listen," the voice says. "There's a guard. The younger one. Brown hair. Doesn't spit on the food. He's new, but he's already tired. He doesn't like the night watch. He's been stationed near the far corridor twice this week. That means they're rotating him out soon, which means he'll be desperate. Desperate is good. Desperate can be bought, or reasoned with, or guilted into one mistake. You get him alone," the whisperer continues. "Get him talking. Make him look the other way. And when they bring someone else to the chamber, you follow the sound. There's always chaos, always noise. That's when you move. You exhale shaky. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm done, the voice says. I'm too weak to crawl. My legs don't work right anymore. I tried once, years ago. Made it to the second gate. Got caught. They broke my foot and left me to rot. But you've still got fire in you. I can hear it. That twitch in your voice. That hunger. You're quiet for a moment. Then you whisper, "What's your name?" Doesn't matter. No, you insist. It does? Another pause. Then, Wrath. Just that. Short. No title. No explanation. Just one word like a scar. You whisper it back. Wrath. He chuckles softly. There. Now someone remembers me. You sit back against the wall, heart still racing. Could it be real? Could there actually be a way out? Or is this just another trap? Some game the guards play, using inmates as bait to test loyalty. You've heard of that happening. Whispered plans, planted rumours, all designed to see who'll take the bait. But Wrath's voice didn't sound like a trick. It sounded like a man already fading, trying to leave behind a key. You lie back down, and you notice something strange. Your straw feels drier. Not dry, just less damp. You wonder if it's a trick of your mind, or maybe a sign. Maybe something's shifting. In the cell across from you, the old man stirs. He's talking again, isn't he? You nod, then realise he can't see you. Yes, Be careful, the old man mutters. Hope's a sharp thing, cuts deeper than chains. You whisper, maybe that's what we need. He doesn't reply. You close your eyes and mouth the name again. Wrath. Your first real ally in this place. And maybe your way out. The next night is worse. Not because of the cold. It's always cold. But because the screaming starts early and doesn't stop. The rhythm is different this time. Less structured. Less methodical. It doesn't rise and fall like before. This is chaos. Panic. Like someone new's been thrown into the room with the tools and no one's told the torturer what to look for yet. Just make them talk. About what? Doesn't matter. Screaming's the point. You listen to it with your eyes closed, forehead pressed to the wall, and try to think about anything else. The whisper from wrath is still lodged in your brain like a glowing coal, burning slow and steady. A hatch, a tunnel, a guard. It all sounds insane, and yet, what else do you have? Silence is rotting you from the inside, and your skin is blistered from nights of contact with wet straw and your own fever sweat. There's no dignity left, no sense of self beyond what you can still remember before they pulled you into this place. If you don't hold on to something soon, you'll join the others. The ones who hum lullabies in the dark, the ones who laugh for no one. Sometime after the screaming fades, either because the person passed out or died or finally confessed whatever they were supposed to, you hear movement again. Not guards this time, just your neighbours. A coughing fit from the cell down the hall, the wet, sputtering kind. Someone moans and whimpers like a dog in a dream, and from the direction of Wrath's voice you hear scraping, soft, repetitive. Wrath, you whisper. The scraping stops. Still here, he replies, barely. What was that sound? He chuckles, the noise papery and dry. I was drawing you a map. A map? I told you I've seen the brickwork. I've felt the mortar with my fingers. I'm carving it from memory into my wall. You can copy it. Scratch it into your skin if you have to. That way, when the time comes, you'll know exactly where to go. You nod again, that reflexive movement, and then catch yourself and speak. What if the hatch is sealed? Then you dig, or you wait, or you die in the right direction. At least he coughs long and raw. Better than waiting here for your ribs to break on their own. You want to ask what that means, but you don't. The next time you hear boots in the corridor, you're already alert. You've been listening for them. The soft shuffle followed by a pause, then a second step, heavier, then the drag of something. Armour maybe, or a blade too big to carry easily. But this time it's a different cadence. You recognise it. Quicker, younger. It's him, the young guard. You shuffle forward, position yourself where the torchlight from his lantern might catch your face, and wait. You hear the keyring jingle, the lantern creak. Then he stops near your cell. He doesn't speak. You don't either. You just meet his eyes. They're as tired as yours, but clearer. He hasn't been here long enough to go numb yet. You can see it, the discomfort, the way his gaze flicks toward the far hallway where the scream chamber waits, then back to you. He doesn't say anything, but something shifts. He leaves. You don't know if that was good or bad. Later, Wrath speaks again. That's him, right? The one with the quiet boots? Yes. Talk to him next time. Ask him something small. Not about escape. Something normal. Normal, you echo. Like it's not hell here. Like you're still a person. You lie back, repeating the words in your head. Like you're still a person. The old man across from you chuckles. God help us all. The hours stretch again. You try to measure time by your hunger. It comes and goes like the tide now. Sometimes you're dizzy from it. Other times, your body forgets it needs food at all. When the meal arrives, it's a crust that could double as a weapon. You chew it slowly, savouring the mould, pretending it's cheese. The rats are back too. You don't flinch anymore when they crawl near. One even settles beside your foot. You name him Thomas. That night the laughter returns. The man down the corridor, the one who never stops. His laugh has evolved. It has rhythm now. He claps softly while he laughs like a drunk noble at a minstrel show. Then he begins to sing. Nonsense words, half Latin, half gibberish. O filiet filiae, etum tum tum. It's both haunting and ridiculous. You almost laugh. Then you hear the guards muttering. They're annoyed. They don't like when someone breaks the dungeon's script. Laughing is fine. Screaming is encouraged. But singing? That's defiance. That's trying to make something out of the dark. Moments later, you hear the cell door down the hall open. The singing stops. You never hear that voice again. Even wrath is silent for a long time. Eventually, you whisper into the wall, "Are you still with me?" A slow exhale. "I am." "You ever come close?" you ask, into making it out. A pause. "Yes. Once. I saw the moon." You sit up straighter. You saw it. Through the bars of a vent shaft. Smelled the night air. Heard an owl, thought I'd made it. Then I passed out. He chuckles. Woke up back in my cell. Half dead. But for a moment I remembered what air felt like when it wasn't shared by 50 desperate men. You don't speak for a while. You just let that image hang in the air. The moon. An owl. Real air. Then you whisper, "Maybe I'll see it too." "You better," Wrath replies. "Someone should." A few hours later, or maybe a full day, you hear footsteps again. Same pace, same boots. The young guard. You don't move this time. Don't rush to the bars. You sit calmly and wait. He pauses outside your cell, as if deciding whether to stop or keep moving. He stops. You glance up, eyes heavy-lidded. "What time is it?" He blinks. You've caught him off guard. Late," he mutters. You nod, as if that's all you needed. "Feels late." A pause. Then quietly he says, "They took another one today." "Didn't scream much," you reply, and he shakes his head. "Didn't have the energy." Then he moves on. You sit in the dark, pulse steady. That was the first step. You're still a person. At least for now. At some point, your clothes become the enemy. You can't say when exactly, but it sneaks up on you, like everything else in this place. First, it's a stitch in the collar that starts rubbing raw against your neck, then a seam that digs into your waist when you lie too long on your side. Then, slowly, the entire outfit becomes a living thing, itching, chafing, damp in all the wrong places, and always clinging like a second skin soaked in swamp water. You try to adjust it, gently at first. Pull the sleeves away from your wrists, lift the hem of your tunic so it doesn't press into your thighs. But it's no use. The cloth is saturated now, with sweat, grime, blood maybe, and something worse, some thick, sticky residue from the straw or the rats, or even your own skin slowly breaking down. It's not fabric anymore. It's a curse you have to wear. At one point you try to peel it off entirely, maybe just the top half, just for a moment of relief, but your joints scream in protest, and the dried patches of filth tear when you move. It's like trying to take off a bandage that's fused with your skin. You stop before you do real damage, and still, the itching continues. Your scalp is a battlefield now. You've scratched so much you're certain you've drawn blood. Your nails come back red sometimes, not enough to panic, but enough to notice. There's a crust behind your ears, and you feel the bumps on your shoulders and spine. Bites, you think. From what? You don't want to know. Lice are a given. You can practically feel them setting up camp in your hair, throwing little banquets, inviting friends. But there's something else too. Fleas, mites. You caught one crawling across your forearm the other day, pale, translucent, fast. You flicked it off instinctively, then realised you'd just participated in the dungeon's most popular sport. Self-inspection, followed by existential dread. You finally understand why medieval prisoners were sometimes referred to as walking corpses. It's not the pallor or the weight loss. It's the feeling of being inhabited. Like you've become a place instead of a person. A breeding ground for vermin, a warm pocket of blood and moisture that other things want to live in. And you know what's worse? Your body's adapting. It's not fighting anymore. You're not shivering as much. You're not flinching when the rats crawl over your foot. Your stomach only growls every few hours now. You're evolving into something else. Not better, just adjusted. You glance down at your tunic and realise it's no longer brown or grey or whatever it used to be. Now it's blotched. Yellow-green in places, blackened near the hem, dark red around the wrists. The edges are fraying, the threads have gone loose and stringy. You could pull a handful off and make rope. You think about doing it. Maybe you will. In a twisted way, your clothing has become your journal. Every stain, every tear, every crusted over patch of blood tells part of the story. That was the first night. That's when the coughing started. That dark ring near your ribs. That's where you curled up after hearing the boy down the hall beg for his life. No one listened. And yes, you've started talking to yourself. Not constantly, just occasionally. A whisper here and there, a quiet comment about the way the stone wall glows in the torchlight, an observation about how your skin has started to feel waxy. You tell yourself it's a coping mechanism. You're keeping the words flowing. It's healthy. Probably. Wrath hears you once and says, "That's good. Talk it out. That's what keeps you real." The old man across the hall disagrees. Talking's how they hear you. That's how they pick who's next. They're both right. You talk when you need to remember you're human. You shut up when you hear the boots. And when the boots come tonight, they come in twos. Always a bad sign. You hear them stop 3 cells down. A voice barks an order, sharp and tired. No more delays. Pull him. Chains rattle. Someone groans. A young voice. Not a child, but not a man either. The kind of voice that still sounds surprised when it hurts. They drag him past your cell, and you make the mistake of looking. He's got a blindfold on, but his mouth is open, panting like an animal caught in a snare. His knees don't work. One guard carries his weight while the other keeps a grip on the manacles. He doesn't scream. Not yet, but you know he will. You turn away and scratch at your collar until your nail catches on something hard. A scab. You didn't even feel it form. That's how numb you are now. Here's a grim historical tidbit. Prisoners who stayed in dungeons long enough were often called blessedly quiet in court records. It meant they no longer cried out, no longer argued. They stood in silence when brought before their accusers, their minds already stripped bare. Some viewed it as divine acceptance, others just called it brain rot. You're getting there, but Wrath's map keeps you anchored. You spend hours tracing imaginary lines with your finger on the stone floor, trying to recreate his directions from memory. 3 paces past the rack, second stone left of the support column, follow the cold air. Sometimes you whisper it like a prayer. You haven't spoken to the young guard again, but you've seen him. He's noticed you. The last time he passed, you didn't move. You just met his eyes. And for a flicker of a second, he stopped, as if he expected you to say something, as if he was hoping you would. But you didn't. Not yet. You're waiting for the moment Wrath promised. And until then, you scratch and wait, and try not to become your own tomb. The darkness here doesn't just hide things, it devours them. Time, for one. You stopped trying to count days a while ago, mostly because there's nothing to count with. No sunrise, no sunset, no guards calling out the hour, no routine beyond the occasional groan, scream, or bowl of unidentifiable sludge shoved through the hatch. You sleep when you collapse, and wake when your bones start aching in a new position. Time becomes a feeling instead of a measurement. And lately, that feeling's not good. You try to keep track using your breath. Inhale, exhale, pause. 1. Inhale, exhale, pause. 2. But even that started to slip. You lose count. You trail off. You realize you've been holding your breath for no reason, just sitting there with your lungs clenched like you're waiting for something awful to happen. You are. You always are. There's no rhythm to the days anymore. The dungeon doesn't operate like a proper prison, with routines and timetables and scrolls marked with names. It's chaos. Disorganized torment served in irregular portions. Sometimes they come for people in the dead quiet of the night. Other times they come at what feels like morning, voices sharp and commanding, boots echoing like thunder through the corridor. Sometimes they come for no one at all, and that's the most unsettling of all. Because that's when you feel the waiting, the calculation. That's when you know they're deciding. You realize, horrifyingly, that you've started doing the same, deciding. Each morning, if you can call it that, you wake and wonder, who's next? Sometimes you hear a whisper in the dark, not me, not today. Other times it's a prayer, mumbled and broken. The old man across the way has started muttering in a language you can't recognize. Not Latin, not anything you heard in the chapel growing up, just low rhythmic sounds. Maybe it's not even a language at all. Maybe it's the last song of a mind fraying at the edges. Even Wrath is quiet now. He still responds when you call his name, but his voice is thinner, faded, like a cloth worn down to its final thread. He told you 2 days ago, you think it was 2, that he hasn't eaten in over a week, that his legs are giving out, that his lungs feel like smoke. You ask if he still believes in the hatch, and he says, I have to, that's all. As for you, your own body has turned against you in new ways. Your feet are swollen, your skin has taken on a waxy tone, and the blisters near your ankles from the shackles have broken open. The infection is setting in. You know that smell. Sharp, sweet, wrong. Your breath catches every time you move, not just from pain, but from the thought that this might be how it ends, not by torture or trial, but by rot, quietly, in the dark, forgotten. The straw beneath you hasn't been changed. Ever. You're sure of it now. There's a compacted layer beneath the top that's almost solid, like packed earth. It smells worse each day. Mildew and piss and the unmistakable tang of blood. You've tried shifting it around, fluffing it with your hands to keep dry layers near your body, but that just stirs up more filth. One night, you even dreamed the straw was alive, writhing beneath you, trying to crawl into your mouth. You woke gagging, convinced for a moment you'd swallowed something moving. You didn't. Probably. And then there's your mind. You've begun losing chunks of time now, not just minutes, but hours. You'll close your eyes thinking of one thing and open them to something else entirely. Another posture, a new cut on your wrist, a faint line of dried blood on the inside of your sleeve. You've started talking again, not whispering. Talking, to the wall, to the rats, to yourself. Sometimes the words don't even make sense. You catch yourself mumbling your name on repeat. You don't know how long you've been doing it. You just need to remember. You're trying to anchor yourself. But even your name feels hollow now. Like a story you heard once long ago about a person who wore clean boots and had fingernails that weren't cracked and blackened. That person's dead. And the new you? You're not sure yet. Here's a little-known historical debate you might appreciate. Some scholars believe the phenomenon of losing time in medieval dungeons wasn't just psychological. They argue that certain rooms were deliberately constructed to warp perception. Sloped floors, angled walls, low ceilings designed to disorient, and most cells had no airflow at all, which led to the build-up of mold spores and methane gas. Natural chemicals that can induce hallucinations, confusion, even temporary memory loss. You're not sure if your cell is one of those, but it wouldn't surprise you. You've smelled things that make your vision go fuzzy, heard voices that stop when you blink, seen flickers of light on the wall that vanish when you move toward them. One time you even saw a bird, perched on your chain, a tiny thing, blue wings, a beak that clicked softly, like it was asking you to follow it. You reached for it, barely breathing, terrified it would vanish. It did, and yet, part of you still believes it was real. That's where you are now, the space between hope and fever dream, which makes it all the more jarring when you hear a real sound, a human sound, a guard, the young one. He stops outside your cell again, keys clinking, lantern low. You can smell the oil, sharp and acrid. You sit up slowly. He says nothing. You don't speak either. Then softly he kneels down. "Your name," he says. You blink. It takes longer than it should. "What?" He glances down the corridor to make sure no one's coming, then back to you. "I want to know your name." You whisper it. The sound escapes your lips like ash. He nods, says nothing else. Then he slides something through the food slot. It's small. You barely hear it land. You wait until he's gone. Then you crawl forward and reach for it. It's a scrap of bread. Real bread. Not dungeon mush. It smells of yeast, of warmth. You bite into it slowly. It tastes like memory. And for the first time in days, weeks, you feel real. You're still here, and someone remembers your name. The fever comes on like a secret. Soft, slow, invisible at first. A little ache in your joints, a flicker of heat behind your eyes. You tell yourself it's just exhaustion, hunger, a reaction to the mold and mildew you've been breathing like air, but deep down you know. Your body's turning against you in a new, more final way. You wake up drenched in sweat, even though the stone beneath you is cold enough to freeze marrow. You're shivering and burning at the same time, a contradiction wrapped in rags. Your clothes cling to your skin like wet parchment, and your mouth tastes like metal. You blink, and it takes several seconds for your vision to focus. The bars swim, the straw ripples, the rats, even they keep their distance now. You know infection when it sets in. Everyone does, even if they've never been taught to name it. It's primal. The body rings its own alarm bells. The wound on your ankle has turned red and swollen, hot to the touch, with a dark centre that oozes when you press on it. It's spreading. Your foot is beginning to stiffen, and pain pulses up your leg in waves, like the dungeon itself is gnawing on you from the inside. You press your back to the wall, breathing in shallow gasps. Panic flares. Not the scream and claw kind, but the slow realization kind. The quiet kind. Because there's no one coming. No doctor. No priest. No poultice-wielding nurse with kind eyes. Medieval healthcare, especially in dungeons, was a contradiction in terms. If you were locked up, you were either a criminal, a heretic, or a political inconvenience. Either way, your survival wasn't exactly high on the priority list. Sometimes you'd get a visit from the physician, if your captors needed you to stay alive long enough to talk. But those visits were rare, and even when they happened, the tools weren't much better than guesswork and a bucket of leeches. Bleeding, purging, burning, those were the go-to treatments. Infection? Probably a curse, or too much bad air, or maybe, if you were lucky, they'd say the saints were testing your soul. Wrath hears your breathing before you even say anything. You're sick, he says. You try to argue, to say no out loud, but your voice is gone, thick, cracked. It comes out as a cough instead, wet and rattling. He doesn't say, I told you so. He just sighs. How bad? You glance down at your ankle. It looks like a fruit left out too long in the sun. Bad? Is it black? You swallow. Not yet. That's something, he mutters, as if that counts as optimism. You lean your head back, staring up at the ceiling, or what little of it you can see in the flickering torchlight. Your thoughts begin to scatter. You try to remember your own name again. It takes effort. You try to remember your mother's face, and suddenly you can't picture it. That's what terrifies you most, the way the fever strips your memory, like it's not just your body breaking down, but your identity. And once that's gone, what's left? You wonder if the young guard will come back, the one who asked your name. You want to believe that the scrap of bread meant something, that maybe, deep down, he sees you as a person. Not just another lump of rotting meat in the shadows, but guards come and go. They're rotated, replaced, sometimes executed for showing mercy. Kindness is a risk, and this place doesn't like risks. And yet, as if summoned by your thoughts, you hear the soft tread of boots, not the heavy, clangy, cruel kind, the soft ones. You force yourself up, biting your tongue to stay conscious. Your vision doubles, but you see him, the guard. He stops at your cell again and crouches, just like before. His eyes widen when he sees your leg. He doesn't speak for a long time, then finally in a whisper, you need help. You nod slowly. I can't bring anyone. They'll kill you. You want to ask. Then why are you here? But he beats you to it. I brought something. He reaches into a pouch and pulls out a small leather bundle, unties it. Inside are two things. A cloth soaked in something that smells faintly of alcohol, and a crushed ball of herbs. Nothing fancy, just a poultice, but it's more than you've had in weeks. He slides the bundle through the slot. Wrap it around the wound. Keep the cloth tight. I'll try to bring more tomorrow. You stare at it like it's a miracle, because honestly it is. Why? You croak. Why help me? He looks away, jaw clenched, then quietly. My brother died in a place like this. No one helped him. He stands up and leaves without another word. You sit there, hands trembling, staring at the rag and the herbs like they're made of gold. Then you act, clumsy, but careful. You wrap the poultice around your ankle, tie the cloth tight, biting down on your fist as the sting hits. The herbs work fast. The pain dulls, not gone, but distant. You breathe, just breathe. The old man across the hall chuckles. Making friends, are we? You smile, first time in days, maybe weeks. Something like that. Careful. They'll burn him for it. You know he's right. And yet, in this place where silence is the only language and kindness gets you killed, someone still showed up. You fall asleep like that, back against the wall, ankle wrapped in borrowed mercy, thoughts drifting somewhere just above the fever. In your dream, the ceiling of your cell opens, and there's the sky, blue and endless, just for you. You wake to chanting, not the usual murmurs or feverish mutterings echoing from the far cells. No, this is something different, measured, deliberate, rising and falling in soft waves, like a choir underwater. Latin. You recognize the rhythm, though the words blur. Someone is saying Mass, or pretending to. You open your eyes slowly. The fever's still there, low and quiet now, like an ember waiting for wind. Your ankle is numb, and not in a good way. The skin around the poultice has turned purple-grey. You can't feel your toes, but you're breathing. And right now, that's the win you'll take. The chanting continues. Closer this time, then footsteps. Leather shoes, not boots. Soft soles with confidence. That's not a guard. You pull yourself upright, biting back a groan. Every joint protests. Your skin feels stretched too tight over your bones. When you lean on your elbow, it slips on the damp straw. You prop yourself up just as a figure appears outside your cell. A priest. He stands with his hands folded in front of him, robe immaculately clean, a silver cross glinting at his chest. He doesn't look like he belongs here. He doesn't feel like he belongs here. His skin is clear. His hair is brushed. His eyes, though, those belong here. Cold. Precise. The kind of gaze that's seen too much suffering and no longer finds it interesting. Dominus vobiscum, he says gently, as if he's just entered a quiet chapel and not a rotting corridor full of dying men. You say nothing. He crouches, inspecting you through the bars. You look worse than I expected. He says it like an observation, not an insult. You narrow your eyes. Am I supposed to confess? He smiles faintly. If you'd like. But I'm not here to absolve you. Then why? He reaches into his sleeve and pulls out a small roll of parchment, unfurls it. You can't read the writing from here, but it's stamped with a red seal and a small loop of blue thread. Something official. I'm here, he says, to ensure your soul is in order. You laugh, and it sounds like gravel. Bit late for that. His expression doesn't change. Better late than never. There's a long pause. He shifts slightly, and you notice something else. He's not alone. Behind him, farther down the hall, stands another man in robes. Eyes closed, lips moving silently, maybe praying, maybe reciting a script. You look back at the priest before you. Your church, he nods. Does that mean anything anymore? He doesn't answer, just folds the parchment again and slides it back into his sleeve. I've seen men tortured, you mutter, men who didn't even know what they were confessing to. Yes, the priest says, and you did nothing. We're here to serve the soul, he replies calmly. The body is of less concern. It's not a cruel answer, not even defensive, just fact. That's what makes it worse. He leans in slightly. There are whispers about you. You blink. What kind of whispers? You've survived longer than expected. You haven't confessed. You haven't died. You have a guard speaking to you by name. He watches your face carefully. That makes people nervous. You swallow. I'm just surviving. No one just survives down here, he replies. Everything is seen. You shift your weight. And what does the church see? He tilts his head. A man on the edge. Of damnation or something else? I'm here to find out. You think I'm heretic? I think you're inconvenient. There it is. Truth. Plain and cold. Not that you're evil. Not that you're dangerous. Just that your continued existence poses a question no one wants to answer. He stands. I'll return tomorrow. You'll either have something to confess or you won't. And if I don't, then I'll know your path is set. He nods once, turns and walks back down the corridor. You sit there, reeling. Not from the encounter. He was just another visitor in the parade of horror that is your life now. But from what it confirms. You're visible. Someone up there knows you're still alive, still quiet, still uncooperative. That makes you a problem. Wrath speaks, voice barely audible. They sent one to me too. Years ago. You lean closer. What happened? I gave them nothing. So they made something up. Said I denounced the archbishop. Claimed I was part of a plot to poison the bishop's wine. I didn't even know what wine he drank. You ask, did they try to save your soul? He chuckles. No, just his reputation. That night the fever returns with vengeance. You dream of fire and feathers, of churches collapsing into wells, of priests with rats sewn into their robes. You wake up screaming once, maybe twice. At some point you see the bird again. This time it lands on your shoulder, pecks at your ear. You cry, not because it hurts, but because it's the only living thing that seems to want to touch you without punishment. Your mind is slipping. You feel it now. You've stopped checking your wounds, stopped scratching the bites. The rats walk freely beside you and you don't even blink. The young guard returns just before the world tips completely. He crouches, sees your eyes, and swears under his breath. You're burning, you nod, or you think you do. He slides something through the food slot. A flask. Drink it. Slowly. It'll help. You drink. It tastes like boiled herbs and spoiled honey, but it cuts the fire. When you look up, he's still there. Why are they talking about me, you ask, voice soft. Because they don't understand why you're still here, he says. You don't scream. You don't confess. You don't die. You stare at him. You make them uncomfortable. He leans in. And uncomfortable things get erased. You know what he means. Not killed. Erased. As if you never existed. He hesitates, then says quietly, "If you're going to act, do it soon." Then he leaves. You lie back, heart racing despite the numbness creeping up your limbs. The priest is returning, the infection is spreading, the whispers are getting louder, and your time is running out. You hear your name again before you hear the verdict. A guard shouts it from down the corridor. Not your full name, not the one you were born with, but the shortened version they carved onto the roster outside your cell in chalk. It's misspelled, of course. 3 letters off. You almost laugh. It's the sort of mistake that, out in the world, would be mildly annoying. Down here it's terrifying, because it means they don't know you. Not really. And if they don't know you, they can't possibly judge you fairly. Not that fairly has ever been the standard here. You drag yourself upright, every movement a negotiation. Your ankle is worse than yesterday. The cloth has gone stiff with dried fluid, and your skin underneath is turning a colour that doesn't belong to anything living. The rest of your body is little better, ribs pressing tight against skin, muscles barely responding. You're somewhere between consciousness and a fever dream, tethered to reality only by the occasional whisper from Wrath and the rhythmic scrape of a rat dragging crusty bread across the floor. The guard appears moments later, not the young one. This one's older, broad-shouldered, half a beard, and the distinctive scowl of someone who's spent his life hurting others and justifying it with a paycheck. He doesn't unlock the door, he doesn't need to, you're not going anywhere fast. Up, he grunts. You don't move, he sighs. Trial today. Wake up, worm. You've got your big moment in the sun. He laughs like that's a joke, like any of you have seen sunlight in weeks. You try to stand, but your legs betray you. You collapse before you make it fully upright, crashing down on the straw with a thud that knocks the breath from your lungs. He opens the door with a grunt of irritation and steps in, grabbing you under the arm like you're a sack of barley and hauling you upright. Every joint screams. Your vision spins. For a second, you're sure you'll vomit, but your stomach is too empty for that luxury. The hallway feels longer than you remember. Torchlight burns your eyes. The walls seem to close in, whispering things in languages you don't know. Your head swims. You're vaguely aware of other prisoners watching, just flickers of faces through the bars, blank stares, a pair of wide, glinting eyes, a hand reaching through the bars, fingers twitching like antennae. They drag you up a stone stairwell you didn't know existed. Not the main stairs. This is narrower, hidden, probably carved out centuries ago by monks or masons with something to hide. The air shifts as you ascend, just barely warmer, less damp. You catch the faint scent of smoke, and... is that bread? Real bread? You reach the top and stumble into a stone chamber lined with wooden benches. There's a dais, a table, a few robed figures, hunched and muttering amongst themselves. No one looks at you. This is the trial. No jury, no defence, just men with robes, a scribe with a quill, and a man at the head of the table wearing a heavy chain around his neck that probably weighs more than you do now. The steward. He doesn't stand when you're dragged in. He just waves vaguely at a stool in the centre of the room. The guard forces you down onto it. No one offers water, no one offers a blanket. You shake as you sit there, sweat sliding down your spine, chills twitching under your skin. Name, one of the robed men says. You give it. Full name, he says sharply. You do. He writes something. Then another man speaks. You're charged with sedition, blasphemy, and disrespect toward the Crown and Church. And that's news to you. What did I say? You manage. The man squints at the parchment. It does not say. You want to laugh. You do laugh, actually. Just a weak little huff through cracked lips. Do you deny the charges? You shake your head, not as a no, but as in disbelief. I can't deny what I never did. One of them glances at the steward, who lifts a brow. Do you admit to them? You look him dead in the eye. Do you know what I'm accused of? A pause, then the steward chuckles. Not with mirth. It's a tired sound, like this is all a show, and he's just playing his part. Then the priest appears, the same one from before. He steps into the room quietly, robes pristine, face unreadable. He moves to the steward's side and whispers something in his ear. They confer for a moment. The room is dead quiet, except for the scratching of the scribe's quill. Then the steward speaks again. You are not to be executed. Yet. Your heart skips. Hope, or something worse. You are to be returned to your cell, until further clarification can be made. You blink. Clarification. The priest smiles. Your soul may yet be useful. And just like that, they wave you off. No evidence, no witnesses, no decision, just delay. You're dragged back down the corridor, not with force this time. More like you're being handled. As if someone higher up gave a vague order. Keep that one breathing. For now. As the guard hauls you back to your cell, you whisper, "Why delay it?" He snorts. It means someone's arguing about you. Who? Doesn't matter. Could be a bishop. Could be the steward's cousin. Could be a clerk who likes your handwriting. You're tossed back into the cell with all the grace of a fish thrown on a dock. The door clangs shut. You lie there, stunned, drenched in sweat, mind spinning. You weren't found guilty, but you weren't cleared either. You're in limbo. From his cell, Rath speaks. They're afraid to kill you. You turn your head toward his voice. Why? Because you haven't broken yet. And if you don't, someone might start asking why they put you here in the first place. You say nothing. Just lie there, head spinning, ankle throbbing, mind trying to make sense of a verdict that wasn't. The old man across the hall finally speaks again. Trial by delay, he says softly, cruelest kind. And you believe him, because at least a verdict means an ending. And all you've got now is more time. Time to rot. Time to be watched. Time to wonder what they'll decide. Sleep doesn't come. It hasn't, really, for days. Or maybe weeks. Whatever fragments of unconsciousness you've drifted into lately haven't felt like rest. They've felt like drowning. When you do pass out, it's from exhaustion, not surrender. And every time you wake, your body feels more foreign. More like a place and less like a person. It's too cold to sleep now anyway. The kind of cold that isn't sharp, but deep, slow, creeping, ancient. A cold that doesn't want to bite you, but to live inside you. You curl tighter beneath the straw, or what's left of it. It's damp again. Your fever keeps drying you out, and then the wet stone soaks you all over again, like a horrible cycle of misery and mildew. The crust around your ankle has darkened. You haven't unwrapped the cloth in 2 days. You don't want to see what's underneath. You already feel it. Every throb is like a drumbeat inside your bones, muffled only slightly by the numbness that's crept up past your calf now. That might be a blessing. You try to keep your mind focused, but it's drifting more often. You catch yourself whispering things without knowing it. A recipe your mother taught you once. A prayer you barely remember. The name of a dog you haven't seen in a decade. The dungeon scrapes memory from you like old wax from a candlestick, slowly, with effort, until there's nothing left but flickers. It's dark, of course. Always dark. But tonight it feels thicker. Like the torch outside your cell is burned out and no one's bothered to replace it. Or maybe they have. Maybe the hallway's still lit. You just can't see it anymore. Your vision's been playing tricks lately. There's a permanent shimmer around the edges like the air is made of smoke. You squint and blink and rub your eyes, but it never goes away. You think about Rath. He hasn't spoken in hours. Maybe more. Maybe he's asleep. Or maybe he's passed into whatever halfway place people go before they leave entirely. You whisper his name once. Rath. But there's no reply. You feel something clutch at your chest that you don't have the strength to name, and then you start to hallucinate. Not the full-body, screaming kind, just flickers at the edge of your mind. A shape in the corner of your cell, a whisper behind your ear, a warmth that brushes your cheek and vanishes. You see a patch of sunlight on the wall, golden and dust-filled, and your heart leaps, sunlight, until you reach out and it's just mould. That's when the fire starts. Not real fire, but the idea of it. Your brain, desperate for warmth, conjures it from memory. You see it in your mind. A crackling hearth, orange light dancing across a wooden ceiling, the smell of burning pine. You even hear it, the snap and hiss of sap, the low murmur of conversation beside it. It's not real. You know it's not real, and still you lean toward it. You press your hands to the cold stone wall, imagining it radiating heat. But it's not heat. It's just the fever. The room begins to spin gently, like a ship rocked by distant waves. You lie back and close your eyes, trying not to vomit, or scream, or cry. Here's something eerie you once read in a forgotten book. Extreme cold can cause hallucinations of warmth. It's a final trick of the nervous system. As the body begins to shut down, it stops recognizing danger. The skin starts to burn in reverse. People feel hot and start tearing off their clothes in snowstorms. They dig into ice thinking it's blankets. They smile right before they die. You wonder if that's what this is? You don't want to die smiling. You sit up again, shaking, and force your hands to your face. You slap yourself once, lightly, then harder. You whisper your name. Again. Again. You're still here. You're still real. The words sound ridiculous, hollow, but you keep saying them, and then sound from the corridor. Footsteps, not guard boots, not armoured, lighter, quicker. You scramble to your knees, pressing your face to the bars. Your eyes are useless, but your ears sharpen. A faint creak, a soft voice, then the unmistakable click of a latch. A cell door opens, then another, then silence. Your heart hammers. It's happening. It's happening. Wrath's warning echo in your mind. When they come for someone else, that's your window. You whisper across the darkness. Wrath? Still nothing. You try the chain again. It's bolted to the wall, same as always, but the pin near the floor, you remember what Wrath said. Some were loosened by years of wear. You pull it, gently at first, then harder. It groans, just slightly, then a whisper beside you. You want to go now? It's Wrath. Alive. You exhale like a drowning man breaking the surface. Yes. Then listen carefully. When the guards walk away, count to 50. They'll stop near the end of the hall for a drink. That's your window. You crawl. You follow the left wall. You'll find the old support beam. Feel for the loose stone. Behind it is the hatch. You nod, eyes brimming. Will you come? I can't crawl anymore, he says flatly. You want to argue, to beg him to try. But you hear it in his voice. He's already let go. What he's giving you is the only thing he has left. 50 seconds. You hear the guards talking now. Laughing, actually. Someone groans in pain farther down. Not near you. Not you. Not yet. You count 1, 2, 3. The chain creaks louder now as you pull it, bracing your weight against the wall. 25, 30, it's moving. 40? You bite your tongue to keep from cheering. You can't feel your foot, but your arms still work. That'll have to be enough. 45, 50, go. You drop flat and slide through the filth. Face against stone, teeth clenched. It smells like centuries of waste. You gag but don't stop. You crawl like a snake, dragging yourself toward the left wall, fingers fumbling across wet stone and moss. You count each crack, each notch, until you feel it. The beam. Your hand finds the edge of the brick and it shifts under your fingers. Behind you, footsteps again. You freeze. Then, Wrath's voice loud for the first time. Hey! You bastards! Over here! Over here! You want to scream no, but you know. You know what he's doing. The guards rush past your corridor. They don't see you. They see him, and they take him. You hold your breath until the hallway falls silent again. Then you pull, and the hatch opens, just enough. Cold air rushes up from the dark below. Not damp, fresh. You stare into it, and drop through. You land hard, shoulder first, into what feels like mud. Wet, cold, and shockingly deep. It sucks at your limbs as you sink slightly, arms flailing just enough to catch a low, curved wall on one side. It's pitch black down here, darker than the cell, darker than anything you've ever known. Not even your hand in front of your face makes a silhouette. You could be in a cave or a coffin, and for a brief, terrible moment, you wonder if you've just dropped into your own grave. Then the smell hits. It's worse than the dungeon, thicker, older. You've become familiar with rot, stale urine, sour sweat, blood. But this is something ancient, earthy, fetid, cloying. Like time itself has been fermenting. This isn't just filth. This is forgotten filth. You gag instantly, hand over your mouth, and nearly lose the stale bread you swallowed earlier. Whatever you're crawling through has been here for centuries. It's not sewage. It's not mud. It's both and more. You try to breathe through your nose, which is a mistake, then try not to breathe at all. Your arms push you upright as best they can, and your hands scrape across stone slicked with slime. You orient yourself, face pressed against what you hope is a wall, then start moving. The tunnel is narrow, lower than you expected. You can't crawl on hands and knees. It's more of a slither, a low wriggle. Elbows bent, shoulders hunched, chin tucked. Every move scrapes something. Your ribs against stone, your knees against bone. You think it's bone. You don't stop to check. There's no room to turn around anyway. You move forward, inch by inch, the cold air cutting through your fever like a blade, and in a twisted way it feels good, like your body, racked with infection and delusion, is being dipped into something clean. Not because it is clean, but because it's not the dungeon. You're below the bottom now, beneath even the rot. The air is different down here. Stagnant, yes, but less human. No voices, no moaning, no laughter. The only sound is your breathing, ragged and sharp, and the rhythmic slosh of whatever clings to the floor. Occasionally something splashes nearby. You freeze every time. Rats, probably. Or something larger. The thought comes uninvited and you shove it down. You remember Rath's voice. Follow the cold, stay left. So you do. There's a wall to your left. Rough, wet. You keep one hand on it at all times, even when the tunnel widens briefly and you're tempted to explore the centre. That's how you'd get lost. You've read stories, well, heard them. People dropped into catacombs, chased into plague tunnels, never seen again. Years later, their bones are found curled around their knees like they died crying. You won't be one of those. You keep crawling. Eventually the space changes again. The ceiling lifts just enough for you to straighten your back, almost sit. You pause there, breathing shallowly, listening. The silence is total, heavy. You strain your ears so hard you think you can hear your own heartbeat echoing back at you. Then you feel it. A breeze, tiny but real. It brushes past your cheek, cool and dry, and you freeze. You shift toward it, pressing your face into the dark, eyes wide despite their uselessness. Air, that means exit. Maybe not soon, but somewhere. You start crawling faster, or trying to. Every movement now is pain. Your ankle has completely stopped responding. You're dragging your leg behind you like a sack. Your shoulder is screaming from the fall. You're not bleeding, yet, but the skin is raw, split in places. You have no idea what time it is. No idea how long you've been underground. Could be minutes. Could be an hour. Could be days for all your body understands. Then your hand brushes something on the wall. A carving. You freeze, fingertips moving over the stone. It's not natural. You recognize the texture. Etched lines. Someone scratched into this wall long ago. Not just random marks. Letters. You can't see them, but you feel them. A VE. Just like the mark in your cell. You swallow. Is it the same prisoner? Did they come this way too? Did they escape? Or is this where their story ended? You whisper it under your breath. Ave! A greeting, or a plea. You keep moving. You find another etching 10 feet later. A sun. Crude, but clear, rays and all. Then another, even farther on. A ship, sailing west. Always west. These aren't random. They're trail markers. Someone made it this far. Someone wanted others to follow, but you're not alone. You keep following the carvings, dragging yourself like a ghost with a mission. You pass a collapsed wall at one point, bricks fallen inward, partially blocking the tunnel. You squeeze through a gap barely big enough for your ribs. Your tunic snags and tears, exposing skin to stone. You don't care. Eventually you reach a bend. The breeze grows stronger, you turn it and stop cold. There's a door, or what used to be one. A rotting wooden frame embedded into the stone. No hinges, no handle, just a space. Beyond it, blackness still, but different. You can feel the difference in your bones. The air smells clearer. It doesn't reek of human decay. It smells of earth, moist soil, moss, fresh rot, life. You crawl through it like a newborn, pulling yourself over the threshold, expecting resistance. There is none. You're out of the tunnel. You collapse on cold ground, stone still, but cleaner, drier. There's a trickle of water nearby. You hear it. A stream, maybe. You reach toward it, fingers skimming until you find it. Cool. Real. You cup a bit in your hand and drink. You nearly cry. You roll onto your back and stare at the ceiling, which now arcs like the inside of a chapel. A vault. It's not the surface. Not yet. But it's close. You breathe. For the first time, you breathe without tasting rot. And in that moment, you realize Rath knew. He never meant to come with you. He just wanted someone to make it past the wall, to leave a mark, to prove the dungeon could be escaped. You look up, vision swimming, and swear you see light in the cracks above. You don't move for a long time. Lying there in the vault, you let your body become a part of the stone beneath you. The world is quiet except for the trickle of water and the occasional shuffle of something small in the darkness. You could be dead, and honestly it wouldn't feel that different. But death doesn't usually come with this sense of relief. Not joy, not triumph, just less pain, less filth, less human misery pressing on you like a second set of skin. But you can't stay here, not if you want to be free. You sit up slowly, body trembling under its own weight. Your head throbs, not with fever anymore, but with something else. Adrenaline, probably. Or the dull ache of survival. You roll to your knees and immediately regret it. The skin on your legs burns where the tunnel floor tore it open. But pain is a gift right now. Pain means you're alive, and alive means you can still crawl. The vaulted chamber stretches out around you in the dark. You can't see far, but the faint outline of pillars and arched ceilings tells you this place was meant to be something. A cellar, maybe, or a crypt. Old churches sometimes buried their clergy under the chapel. Other times they just walled them off and pretended it was holy. Either way, this place feels different from the dungeon above, like it was forgotten on purpose. You press your palms to the floor and listen. Nothing above you, no footsteps, no voices. Either you're deep underground, or the guards haven't noticed you're gone yet. Either way, it's a blessing. You reach out and feel your surroundings. Your fingers find another wall, curving inward. A corridor. Narrow again. You brace yourself, then begin to crawl. This new tunnel slopes upward. Not steep, but enough to make your heart pound with cautious hope. You can smell fresh air now. Not strong, not clean, but real. You'd almost forgotten what real air smelled like. Not sour sweat or mould, but minerals, moisture, maybe even the trace of moss, earth, life. And then you hear the voices. You freeze instantly. Not guards, not priests. Something else. They're soft, female maybe, or young, whispering, echoing strangely through the tunnel. You can't make out the words, but the tone sends a chill through you. Calm, measured, familiar, almost like a lullaby. You press closer to the stone, ears straining. The voices fade, then return, louder, closer, then gone again. You whisper aloud, no, not again. It's the chains, the voices from the cell, the ghosts your mind made for you. They've followed you here. You keep moving. You don't want to look back. You pass another carving. A handprint this time. Scratched into the wall, fingers too long, stretched out as if clawing towards something. You run your palm over it. Someone else came this way. Or tried. You whisper thanks to them. Maybe they didn't make it, but their marks helped you stay sane. Then ahead you see it. Light. Not torchlight. Real light. Pale and blue and moving. Moonlight. You crawl faster, forgetting the pain. Your knees scrape open again, and you don't care. You reach a set of stones that curve upward like steps, crooked and half collapsed. You drag yourself over them, breathing harder now. The air smells like rain and leaves. You laugh. Then you see it. A grate. Rusted, half covered in vines just above your head. Light filters through it in slats like spilled milk on stone. You reach up and press your fingers through the bars. Cold metal. Real. You grab it and pull. It doesn't move. Of course it doesn't. You brace your good foot against the stone, plant your weight and pull again. It screeches. You freeze. Heart thudding, sure someone above has heard. But no one comes. You keep pulling, biting down on your own sleeve to keep from groaning with the effort. The rusted bolts creak. One pops free with a sound like a cracking bone. You stop to breathe, then yank again. The second bolt snaps, and suddenly the grate shifts. You blink as a breeze touches your face. You push upward and feel something give, and then you're crawling through, up, into grass. Wet, matted, tangled grass, and a patch of soil too soft to hold your weight. You flop onto it like a fish pulled from a net, blinking into the silver light of the moon. You're outside. You're outside. You roll onto your back and stare at the sky. Grey clouds, shifting stars, and that pale moon floating like a silent witness to your escape. You want to cry, but you're too tired. You just lie there, arms spread, breathing shallow, every nerve humming. The silence is unreal. No chains, no screams, just the sound of wind in the trees. Then you hear them again, the voices, still whispering, still humming. You sit up slowly, heart racing. The sound isn't in your head this time, it's real. Figures move beyond the tree line, shapes, white robes, not guards. Women? Nuns? You squint and one of them steps forward. A woman in a habit, lantern in hand, face lined with age and something else. Worry maybe. Or recognition. She gasps softly when she sees you. "Sweet saints," she whispers. "There's another." Another. She kneels beside you, inspecting your face, your arms. "How did you get out?" You try to speak, but your throat's too dry. She waves a hand behind her. More figures approach. Quiet. Efficient. They kneel beside you. One wraps a cloth around your leg. Another pours water into your mouth. It tastes like heaven. You manage one word. Wrath. The nun's brow furrows. "What did you say?" "Wrath," you repeat. "He stayed." Her eyes darken. She knows the name. "You were in the Eastern Dungeon?" You nod. She looks to the others. "He led another one out." Your heart stutters. You know him?" She nods solemnly. "He's been sending them for years." Your mind spins. He never told you. She places a hand on your forehead. "You're safe now." You laugh, a sound that feels like breaking glass. Safe. You don't know what that means anymore. But you lie back, and for the first time in what feels like centuries, you let yourself close your eyes. You wake to birdsong. At first you don't recognize it. The high, clear whistle cuts through your dreams like a knife through old cloth, and your body flinches before your mind can catch up. You've been conditioned. Every sound meant pain, every footstep was a warning. But this is music, messy and imperfect. The song of something that doesn't know you exist and wouldn't care if it did. You open your eyes. The light is soft, grey-blue, maybe morning. Trees rise overhead, rustling gently in the breeze. You're on a bed of straw again, but not the festering kind. This straw is dry, fresh. There's a blanket over you, thin, patched, but miraculously clean. For a moment, you think you've died. Then the nun appears, the one with the lantern from the night before. She walks quietly, like she was born in silence, carrying a basin of water and a strip of linen draped across one arm. She kneels beside you without a word and begins unwrapping the bandage around your ankle. You prepare yourself for the stink of infection, the black and grey and pus, but she doesn't even flinch. Her face is calm, expression unreadable, like she's done this 1,000 times. "You had a fever," she says softly, "but it's broken." You blink, try to speak. Your voice cracks and dies. She dips a cloth into the basin and presses it to your lips. The water is cold, clean, almost sweet. You drink until your stomach protests, then fall back against the straw with a groan. "You've been here for 2 days," she continues, dabbing your forehead. "You slept like a corpse. We weren't sure you'd wake up." You whisper hoarsely, "Where is this place?" "A refuge," she says simply. "A place for the forgotten." You glance around. You're inside now. A small stone building, walls lined with herbs hanging from twine, shelves of cloth and ceramic jugs. A fire burns in a pit near the back, low but steady. The air smells like rosemary and ash. A refuge. She begins to clean the wound. It's worse than you thought, but not as bad as it could be. The infection hasn't reached the bone. The rot has stopped spreading. Someone's lanced it, drained the worst of it. You grit your teeth as she cleans it, but you don't scream. You're past screaming. "Others have come this way before you," she murmurs, not looking up. "Some crawl out. Others are carried. A few never speak again. You manage. Wrath sent me." She pauses. "Yes. We thought he was gone. It's been so long since the last one." "He's still there," you whisper. "He gave me the map. The tunnel. He distracted the guards." She lowers her eyes. "He always said he would stay. As long as one more could escape." "Why?" She smiles sadly. "Because once someone did that for him." You stare at the ceiling. It's made of old wooden beams, cobwebs dancing in the corners. A beam above your head has markings carved into it. Tallies. Names, maybe. Or just numbers. You wonder if they keep track of everyone who makes it, or everyone who doesn't. She finishes binding your leg and leans back on her heels. "You'll walk again," she says, "eventually, but slowly." You nod. You can feel your toes again. That's more than you hoped for. A soft knock at the door makes her turn. Another nun enters, younger, with flushed cheeks and calloused hands. She carries a bundle of folded cloth. Clothes, the older one says, when you're strong enough. You stare at them like they're relics. Clean clothes, yours have been taken, probably burned. Good riddance. They help you dress that evening. Shirt first, soft linen, worn but intact. Then pants, loose at the waist, cinched with a bit of twine. Your body feels foreign in them. You've grown used to the crusted rags, the stink of yourself. These smell like soap, like lavender. They feed you too. Broth at first, then a small piece of bread, hard but real. Your stomach protests at the sudden generosity, but you eat it anyway, slowly, savouring every bite. You'd forgotten food could taste like something other than mildew and rat droppings. You ask the older nun her name. She hesitates, then says, Elera. It sounds like a name from a song. You nod, trying to store it safely in your brain before the fever steals it again. Why are you helping me? You ask later. She looks at you for a long time before answering. Because no one helped my brother. You nod. That's all the explanation you need. As night falls, they move you to a cot near the fire. The warmth feels wrong at first, luxurious. It softens you, and softness feels dangerous. You're used to armour now, filth and cold and silence. But Elira says you need rest, so you lie back and let it wrap around you. Sometime past midnight you wake again. You're alone. The fire is low. Shadows stretch across the stone walls like fingers. You sit up slowly, body aching. Then you hear it. A faint sound, not inside, outside, chains, just one link. Then silence. You crawl to the window and look out. Nothing. Just trees, moonlight, and the soft wind moving through the branches. But you know what you heard. You lie back down, shivering again. Not from fever this time, but from something else. A memory, maybe. A shadow that followed you out. Some scholars argue that trauma, especially long-term imprisonment, warps the brain in permanent ways, that the body heals long before the mind does. That sounds right. You've escaped the dungeon. But the dungeon hasn't escaped you. Not yet. Still, you sleep. Because for the first time in forever, the darkness is not total, and your dreams are your own. Epped up on a bench beneath a patch of sky that still feels too bright, too open, too unreal. You're outside. The grass tickles your ankles, a breeze hums gently through the trees, and your face feels sun-warmed for the first time in what might be years. You're bundled in a thick wool cloak, your injured legs stretched out, elevated on a smooth stone slab. Birds chirp like they've never known despair, and the scent of damp earth wraps itself around you like a prayer whispered by the world itself. It's peaceful. Too peaceful. You still wake every hour or so, eyes snapping open, hands reaching for chains that aren't there. You flinch at door creaks. You track footsteps like prey. You still expect rats to crawl over your feet. Your instincts haven't caught up with your reality. They might never. You're not alone on the bench for long. He shows up without warning, without sound, as if he simply blinked into existence beside you. A man, younger than you, barely 20 maybe. Tall, thin, cheeks hollowed from hunger, but his eyes still sharp, too sharp. Clothes better than yours, far too clean. His boots are laced with practiced hands. His posture has seen tutors. This man was raised with servants. He doesn't introduce himself right away. Just sits on the opposite side of the bench and crosses his arms. You're the one who escaped the East Wing, he says flatly. You blink, watching him out of the corner of your eye. I guess. You don't know. I don't know how long I was down there. He nods, like that makes perfect sense. What tunnel? I don't know, he huffs. Well, that's not useful. You turn to him. I didn't realise this was a job interview. He gives you a look, not amused, not angry, just measuring, like he's trying to calculate what kind of tool you'd be in the right hands. Finally, he leans forward and says, My name is Caelan. I'm the fourth son of Lord Everin of Brownswick. You don't react. I'm also the reason you're not alone here, he adds. Now you look at him. I helped build the maps, he says, voice lower now. The ones they passed down. The marks, the carvings, the notches. That was me. Well, me and Wrath. Your breath catches. You knew him. He nods. He saved me. 3 winters ago, same as you. You study him. You don't look like someone who ever slept on a stone floor. He smirks. Wealth doesn't protect you from politics, or piety, or betrayal. You don't ask what his crime was. You can already guess it wasn't real. No one in that place seemed guilty of anything except being inconvenient. So, you say carefully, what now? Kalen tilts his head toward the tree line. Now, you heal. You breathe. You eat. You remember how to be a person again. And then, he shrugs. Then you choose. You frown. Choose what? Whether to disappear, he says, or get even. You stare at him. There's something underneath those words. Something sharp and deliberate. Kalen stretches his legs and looks up at the sky. Some people go north, some to the coast. Start over. New names, new lives. The sisters help. They've got ways. Friends in far places. And the others? They go back. You blink. Back? Not to the dungeon. To the world. To the courts. To the halls. To the cloisters. The ones with old grudges. Quiet skills. A cause. You don't say anything, and he turns to you more serious now. The ones who survive. We're rare. We carry proof. Witness. Memory. People in power hate that. You glance down at your hands. The dirt is mostly gone, but your nails are still blackened, your palms still raw. Your body remembers everything. I didn't escape to start a war, you say? Neither did I, Kalen replies. But when I was rotting in that hole, I made a promise. If I ever made it out, I'd make them remember my name. You let that sit in the air between you. I'm not saying you have to do anything now, he adds, but when you're stronger, come find me. He stands, brushing straw from his cloak. You'll know where. Then he's gone, just like that. You sit in silence for a long time after. The breeze lifts your cloak. The sun shifts slightly. A butterfly drifts past, clueless to all the weight on your shoulders. Later, Elira finds you sitting there. She smiles faintly. So, she says, you've met the noble. You nod. He's not wrong, she adds. Some do go back. I don't know what I want yet. She hands you a steaming mug. Broth again. Her way of keeping your insides from quitting completely. You sip, grateful. You don't have to know, she says. But remember, what happened to you wasn't fair. It wasn't right. And it wasn't your fault. You nod slowly. But something in you whispers back. It wasn't only mine. That night, after the fire dies down and the others are asleep, you sneak outside. Just for a moment. You stand under the moon again, the same one that watched you crawl through the tunnel, and stare up into its pale face. You whisper Rath's name, and you swear, silently, that he didn't stay down there for nothing. The world is wide, corrupt, beautiful, and you're alive in it. You wake to bells, not dungeon bells, these are soft, clear, rhythmic. A call to prayer, maybe, or breakfast. You have no idea what time it is anymore, but the light through the high windows is golden, warm enough to glow across the stone floor like honey poured from a cup. The warmth hits your face as you sit up, and you don't recoil this time. You just breathe it in, slow and full. Someone has left you clean water in a bowl. There's a strip of linen beside it, damp. You rinse your face gingerly. Your reflection in the bowl is fractured and rippling, but even through the distortion, you see a face you don't quite recognize. The grime is mostly gone now, but your eyes are sunken, lips chapped, skin stretched thin over hollowed cheeks. You touch your face and it feels like paper. But there's colour returning to your lips. That's something. Elira appears in the doorway holding a bundle. You're strong enough, she says. They've asked for you. You stare at her. She smiles. Not them. Just the others. The ones who've come before you. You don't ask questions. You just nod. She helps you dress again. Simple clothes. Clean. Your leg is bandaged, still stiff, but you can hobble now, leaning on a carved wooden crutch that someone left by the bench. She walks you across the compound, if you can call it that. It's more of a clearing, ringed with trees and overgrown hedges. There's a stone chapel with no door, vines climbing its walls like old scars. Birds flit in and out of broken windows. The place looks like it's been abandoned by time and adopted by those the world didn't want. She leads you to a side chamber off the chapel. You hear voices inside, low, steady. It sounds like a gathering, but not the kind with wine and gossip. This is something different. Inside, the room is round. A dozen or so people sit in a circle, some young, some older, all with the same look in their eyes, worn, wary, watching. Kalen is there, sitting slightly apart as if he's in the circle but not of it. He nods at you. You lower yourself slowly into the last empty seat. There's silence for a moment. Then a woman with a long scar down her neck speaks first. Name, she says, if you remember it. You hesitate, then give it, out loud. It sounds strange in the air, like an old song being hummed again after years of silence. Where were you? She asks. Eastern Wing. Several people nod. A few wince. How long? You shrug. I don't know. Months, maybe a year. They nod again. That answer means something to them. Did you make it alone? You pause. No, someone helped. They know what you mean. The woman places a small stone on the floor in front of her, smooth and dark. For the ones who didn't. You do the same. You don't know where the stone came from. Maybe it was in your pocket. Maybe someone put it there. But you place it beside hers, and now there are two. Others do the same. Kalen doesn't. You suspect he's already laid his long ago. Then the stories begin. Not loud, not dramatic, just told. A man with a limp recounts how he faked madness until a guard stopped locking his cell. A girl barely older than 16 tells how she kept her brother alive by feeding him bits of rat she'd caught in her skirts. Another speaks of a guard who helped him, who risked everything and was hanged for it. No one interrupts. No one asks questions. When it's your turn, you hesitate. Then you speak. You tell them about the cell, about Wraith, about the carvings on the wall and the whispered maps. You talk about the cold, the infection, the hallucinations, the bird, the priest, the trial with no verdict, the hatch, the crawl through the dark. You talk about the light. You don't cry. But when you mention Wrath's name again, your voice cracks. The room is silent when you finish. Kalen finally speaks. You made it to the Phantom trial. You nod. Not many do. That means you were close to disappearing. What is that place, you ask? Why was I even there? He leans forward. That dungeon, Eastern Wing, is where they send people they want erased. No trial, no record, just gone. Quietly, out of the way. Why not just kill them? Too loud, he says, too final, too many questions. But if someone vanishes in the dark, well, that's just the will of God, isn't it? Someone else adds, they call it the Phantom trial because it gives the illusion of justice. Enough time for the church to decide whether you're dangerous or useful. You feel sick. It's not just criminals down there, Kalen continues, it's enemies. Scapegoats, inconveniences, anyone who makes the wrong person uncomfortable. You whisper, there were children. He nods. There still are. Silence again. Someone breaks it gently. What do we do now? Elira's voice comes from the doorway. Whatever you choose. You look at her, and she steps into the circle. You survived. That alone is rebellion. That alone is a story worth telling. She gestures to the stones in the centre. There are 20 now. This is the trial that matters. That you're still here. That you're not alone. Kalen's voice is quieter this time. Some of us are writing, documenting, names, times, faces. Others pass messages through monasteries. A few are organising, more direct efforts. You raise an eyebrow. Revenge? No, he says. Clarity. The scarred woman adds, truth. Another says, memory. Someone else mutters, vengeance. Kalen shrugs. Maybe all of it. You sit back, the firelight in the chapel casting strange shadows on the stone. You're still in pain, still healing, still not whole. But for the first time you realise you matter. You weren't meant to survive, but you did, and they will have to live with that. That night, you don't sleep. Not because of nightmares, not because of rats or screaming or the chill that crawls into your bones like a parasite. You don't sleep because you're thinking, and that, more than anything, tells you how far you've come. The dungeon left no space for thoughts, only reactions, flinching, waiting, enduring. But now, here in this chapel-turned sanctuary, with the sounds of breath and wind and nothing else, your mind is busy stitching itself back together. You sit by the fire, alone now. Everyone else has gone to their cots, wrapped in blankets too thin for winter, but thick enough to remind them they're no longer shackled. The chapel's arched ceiling looms above, and through the broken window near the altar, the moon watches you again, calm and full, a witness to your resurrection. You stare into the flames and wonder, how many others have done this before? Sat here, barefoot and half alive, turning over the question you're turning now. What happens next? Because the escape isn't the end. That much is clear. It's a beginning. A cruel, complicated one. Part of you wants to vanish. Truly vanish. Slip away from this place. Find some edge of the world where no one knows your name. or worse, knows what was done to you. You could disappear into a fishing village, become a shepherd, change your name, forget the past, and pretend that you didn't spend months locked in a hole slowly forgetting the shape of your own voice. But there's another part of you, one that hums hotter each day. That part remembers everything. It remembers the way the guard sneered when you begged for water. It remembers the old man's laughter through broken teeth. It remembers the priest's voice whispering absolution as if your suffering were a sacrament. It remembers Wrath's face in the dark. You pull the blanket tighter around your shoulders and shift closer to the fire. Alira returns just before dawn. She walks silently, but the wooden floor betrays her with a groan, and you glance up. She doesn't apologize for the noise. She just moves to the hearth and warms her hands, not speaking. After a while, she sits beside you. You couldn't sleep. You shake your head. She nods. Most don't. You look at her. How long have you been here? 6 years, she says, eyes still on the fire. I left the church after they sent my brother into the dungeons for questioning a noble sermon. He never came back. I found this place searching for answers. Never left. She turns to you. Not because I gave up, but because there are others who always arrive, like you. You ask, does it help? Staying? She considers. Some days. You both fall quiet. The fire pops, sending a soft burst of sparks toward the stone. You want to go back, she says, and it's not a question. You nod slowly. I don't know what that means. I don't want war. I don't want to kill anyone. You want them to know, she says. You want them to see what they did. Yes. She gives a small smile. Then you already know your answer. You look down at your hands, the skin's healing but the scars are setting. Some will fade, some won't. Kalen offered to help. He does that, she says. Do you trust him? I don't trust anyone, Alira says, but I believe him. That's different. He's arrogant, but he's careful. He doesn't just want revenge, he wants permanence, to undo what they've built by exposing what they've hidden. You whisper, they'll kill him. They've tried. 3 times, you raise an eyebrow. Last one involved poison in a communion cup, she says. He didn't drink. You exhale. He's persistent. He's angry. You sit together in silence until the sky begins to shift from indigo to pale blue. Morning light creeps into the chapel, brushing over the edges of the broken windows, touching the faces of the sleeping with hesitant fingers. Then you hear the bell again, but not from the sanctuary, farther away. You both stiffen. Alira rises. You do too, slower. Your crutch slides under your arm and your pulse begins to race. Stay here, she says, but you don't. You follow her, through the main hall and out the chapel door where the grass is still wet with dew and the trees still dark with shadow. A boy runs toward you, maybe 14, out of breath, hair wild, clothes torn. They've found one, he says, gasping. Alira grabs his shoulders. Where? Northridge. A girl. She made it out of the western wing. Your heart drops. The western wing. You never even saw it. You thought the eastern dungeons were hell. The western ones are older, deeper, not for criminals or heretics, but for monsters. At least that's what the stories said. No one ever came from there, until now. An hour later you see her. She's not conscious, maybe 15. Carried on a makeshift stretcher, arms bound in bandages, hair soaked with blood. She looks more corpse than girl. Her hands twitch in her sleep. You wonder what she's remembering, or what she's still running from. They take her inside. You don't follow. You sit on the chapel steps staring out at the sky. The world is bigger than you remembered, but it's still broken. Deeply, quietly broken. You wonder how many others are still down there in the dark. Sick, starving, whispering, waiting. You feel something twist in your chest. Not anger this time, not grief, just resolve. You're going to write it all down. Every part. You'll write it on walls, in letters on the inside of your sleeves. You'll carve it into the bark of trees and whisper it to children in marketplaces. Not for revenge, for memory. You won't let them forget what they did to you. You won't let them pretend it never happened. The phantom trial wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of theirs. The morning of your departure begins with silence. No ceremony, no goodbyes, no dramatic farewells beneath the rising sun. Just a quiet nod from Alira as she hands you a small parcel wrapped in oilskin. Dried bread, herbs, a sealed letter you're not allowed to open unless things go sideways. You don't ask what that means. You don't want to know. Kalen is waiting for you near the edge of the tree line. He's leaned against a moss-covered wall, arms folded, a satchel at his feet, and the same arrogant calm on his face that he's worn since the day you met him. His sword hangs loosely at his side, not for show. He knows how to use it. He's told you that more than once, usually with a shrug like he's talking about fixing a broken hinge. "You sure about this?" he asks as you limp toward him, your crutch thudding softly against the earth. You glance back just once. The old stone chapel stands crooked but proud in the clearing, light now spilling through the broken stained glass like coloured ghosts watching over the wounded. A pair of the nuns attending to the girl from the western wing. You see her arm move slightly. A good sign. You turn forward. "I'm sure." He doesn't smile, he just nods and starts walking. You follow. The first day is quiet. You travel through the woods, taking the forgotten paths Kalen insists don't exist on any royal map. You pass through ruins, old boundary stones from when kingdoms shifted like sand, and places where the trees seem to lean in just a little too close. Kalen walks like a man who's done this too many times. You hobble like someone who still remembers shackles. You camp beneath the stars. The cold creeps in fast, but Kalen builds a fire with practiced speed. He talks little, but when he does, it's mostly to remind you that staying alive will require more than righteous fury. "You can't just walk into a castle and say, 'Look what they did to me,'" he says as he stokes the flames. "They don't care." You sip the bitter broth he made from crushed herbs and boiled roots. "Then what do? We give them no choice." The second day you reach a fork in the path. "One road leads to Ardenvale," he says, pointing. "Trade city. Loose tongues. Lots of wine. Good place to start planting questions." "And the other?" "Chapel of the Black Vine. Abandoned. Or supposed to be. It's where we store the documents. Names, records, transcripts smuggled from clerks who grew a conscience." You stare at the path. "How many are in that archive?" "Too many," he says, "but not enough." You take the right-hand path. The chapel is hidden in a hollow, surrounded by cypress trees that look like old men with hunched backs. The building itself is collapsed on one side, ivy strangling the bell tower, and moss covering everything like a blanket for the forgotten. Inside, it's colder than you expect. Candles still burn, low and defiant, lighting a narrow corridor that leads to a room with a stone floor and stacks of parchment taller than you. "This," Kalen says, "is what they're afraid of." You limp closer. The pages are covered in tight script. Names, dates, accusations. You spot one marked in red. Subject 413, Eastern Wing. The hair on your arm stands up. You flip through it. The handwriting is precise, cold, like a ledger. Status, awaiting judgment. Condition, non-responsive. Comments, possible use as test subject or conversion material. Test subject. You close the file before your stomach turns. You look at Kalen. "What is this?" "Everything they tried to forget." "And what do we do with it?" "We publish it. Quietly. We give it to those with influence, not nobles, servants, secretaries, scribes, the people who see everything but say nothing. We drop it like poison into their water supply, slowly, steady, until someone starts asking questions. And then we disappear again until the next leak and the next. You sit heavily on a bench. That's not justice." "It's pressure," he replies. "Justice comes later." You stay in the chapel 2 days. You copy names, you read testimonies, you memorize locations. The pain in your leg flares at night, but something else flares too. Focus. You begin to remember things. Not from the dungeon, but before. A riverbank. Your sister's laugh. The smell of rosemary on a feast day. The world before it collapsed. Then one night, as you and Kalen prepare to move on, a courier arrives. A boy. Young. Breathing hard. "They're holding a public trial," he says between gasps. 2 days from now, in the square." Kalen stiffens. "Who?" "High priest from Westreach. And a bishop's page. Charges of corruption." You stare. "They're finally doing it." Kalen frowns. "It's a show. They'll pick the ones who are least connected and toss them to the crowd like scraps, hoping no one asks about the rest." You rise. "Then we make them ask." 2 days later, you stand in the back of a crowd packed into a town square. People jostle, mutter, cross themselves. The accused are brought forward, robes askew, faces blank. There's shouting, there's spectacle. The air smells like sweat and tension. Kaelin slips a parchment into your hand. It's your record. Subject 413. You step forward, not onto the stage, but into the crowd. You hand it to a woman clutching a rosary. She reads. Her eyes go wide. Then you hand it to another, and another, and another. Within moments, whispers spread like wildfire. You don't yell, you don't draw a sword, you just watch. As the truth starts to move, like smoke under a door, like rot in the walls, not loud, but unstoppable. You disappear into the crowd, because this isn't your trial anymore, it's theirs, and it has only just begun. The stars are out when you finally stop moving. You've walked far from the square, through tangled alleys, across a broken bridge, and down a quiet path that only Kaelin seemed to know existed. The air is cool again, the wind rising off the hills and brushing your face with that quiet, ancient feeling you only ever find at the end of a long stories. You don't speak for a while. Neither does he. The silence feels earned, like a medal you didn't ask for but received anyway. Somewhere behind you, in the city you just left, people are whispering, reading, asking questions. And somewhere even farther back, down, deep, past the roots of castles and churches and stone cathedrals, there are still people chained in the dark, wondering if they've been forgotten. They haven't. You sit beneath a tree looking up at the stars and let your breath even out. The pain in your leg is a dull throb now. Permanent maybe, like the memory. It'll never go away completely. But it doesn't hurt the same. It just reminds you that you escaped, that you're still here, still moving. Kaelin hands you a small pouch. It's filled with wax-sealed notes. Names, he says, contacts. People who believe, people who are tired of pretending they didn't see. You nod. You take it. And for the first time, you smile. Not because the war is over, or the dungeon is gone, or because the world suddenly decided to be just. You smile because you know something they don't. You're not alone. The network grows every day. Some carry records, others carry food and bandages, some just carry stories, but all of them carry truth. And truth is heavier than iron. You lie back in the grass, the stars blur slightly, maybe from tears, maybe just sleep. So you let your eyes close, just for a while. You're safe here, for now. And somewhere far away maybe a cell door creaks, and someone else begins to crawl toward the light.